Alrighty, and I am streaming. I am highest stream. Today we're going to be having a good old discussion day with the Paggigalo.
Yeah. We got two big topics and some littler topics as well. So
yeah, I'm very excited. Earlier stream today, I'm gonna have to call it at like 1:30 for sure, so I can go to work.
Yeah,
I'm very tired.
Well, then let's just get right into it. First thing I want to talk about quickly, One Piece is going on a bit of a manga break for like 2 weeks. Who cares? But it is going on an anime break for till April of next year. The anime is breaking. And the reason why this is interesting is because it's Toei, as we know, who's done the anime for years. And the announcement comes with the announcement of the other anime being developed by Wit, I think. And the plan going forward, they basically have said, the plan going forward is Wit is going to do an anime adaptation from the beginning up to Marineford, so like time skip basically. The current anime that is airing right now is going to be edited down from Fishman Island to where it's at right now, like Egghead. It's going to be edited down a bit to adjust for like better pacing, and then Toei is going to come back in April and they're going to do a better pacing for the rest of the series and like finish it off essentially. So hopefully at the end we'll have the Wit kind of early animation up to Marineford, then we'll have the Toei edited for pace version up to Egghead, and then we'll have the Toei better pace version post Egghead essentially. So that's good. Glad they're doing that. To be honest, I would prefer if Wit just came through and did the whole thing after it was done, but this way is kind of like not incredibly disrespectful to Toei, I guess. So.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Looking at it that way.
Yeah, it's I think it's an interesting decision. I do also think it's probably made at least partially in mind for they don't want it to be like 30 years until it's done.
I think Wit, I mean, in my opinion, Wit's just a much better studio, but
yeah,
that's my own opinions coming out. I don't know. Wit could take forever to do it as well. We will see, but I think either way, it's going to be very well done, at least up to Marineford, which is, you know, mostly my favorite part of One Piece. So I'll be happy with it.
Yeah. There's also, you know, Toei is good at one thing. Putting out a lot.
Okay.
And that's it.
Toei's good at one thing. But they're really good at moving the fat from the waist to the breast area. They're really good. Like, they do some nice surgical techniques.
Oh, yeah. Experts in their field.
They're really good at it. Also, they draw all their characters with huge tits. Alright, so anyway. That's One Piece news. You have any other smaller things before we head into the big ones? The big ones?
Let's see. No, not especially. Nothing I can really think of.
Okay. Well, first, let's get into Pokemon. The Pokemon Terra Leak, as it's being called, because over a whole terabyte of info from Gen 3 onward has been leaked. Gen 3 all the way up to Gen 10, which is interesting. a lot of information, a lot of really cool beta sprites that we haven't seen before. Not only beta sprites, but like concept art for a lot of mons. Like I don't know if you saw like concept Metagross. Looks fucking sick.
I did not see concept art for Metagross, but I've seen like a couple of things, like one or two.
Let me see if I can find it. There we go. And so here's the Metagross. I'll link it to you. So I don't know who the artist. We don't know. I don't think who the artist behind some of this concept art is, but there's a lot of like more serious concept art around Gen 3 time. Gen 3 and like 4.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the Metagross beta, where it looks a lot more edgy.
Oh yeah, that looks. That is not a Pokemon.
Yeah, there's let me see if I can find the Cacturne one too. There's a lot. Actually, let me just see if I can find the beta leaks from Mega. Let's see, like, because there is a lot, and some of them are really cool conceptually, but like also like obviously here's the Cacturne one, which also like conceptually it looks really cool, but it's also not a Pokemon.
Yeah.
Something that came out during the leaks during this time was that between Gen 3 and 5, constantly during their meetings, they were talking about swapping Pokemon over from a family-friendly series to like a more teenage-focused series, like Teenage Angsty series. So that might be part of the reason behind some of these designs being like this. A couple more. But yeah, we don't know who the artists behind these ones are, which is sad because I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Finally, here's a Missing No concept art for an actual Missing No mon, which is kind of cool.
Oh, that's really neat.
So yeah, there's a couple more images from that artist, and there's a lot of pixel art of like a lot of different beta stuff. For instance, like Beta Absol. I finally understand Absol's design because Beta Absol, his face was originally a yin and yang sign. It's like, oh, that makes so much sense. The design behind him entirely makes sense now that I realize that it started as like a yin and yang thing.
Yeah.
Along with a lot of
it's really funny sometimes to see the beta concept art because it's like it takes some of like the subtle aspects of a Pokemon's design and makes them just like so blisteringly obvious.
There you go.
Like the fact that Remoraid used to literally just be like a little pistol.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. It's so funny to me.
And a lot of cool stuff. So that's the stuff from the leak that's like really cool. Big fans of. What's not cool is so usually when people leak stuff, they have the self-respect to go through the leak files and kind of weed out the chaff. And specifically what I mean by that is usually taking out people's personal information, which this leaker did not do. A lot of personal information from Game Freak employees leaked along with this, which is really fucking lame. So
yeah, that is disgusting.
Very not cool. But besides that, so besides the good and the bad, we're gonna get to the ugly now. As there is some really funny stuff that also leaked. So there are a lot of gym leaders like kind of bios leaked, like before they had the actual gym leaders and they had like kind of design aspects to them. Like for instance, we have Clay. He was his bio was like the Mind King, and it had like a lot of information about him. He's like 55 years old, that kind of thing. So kind of like different information like that. One of them for Cillian Crest and Chili are actually based off of the Osumatsu quadruplets from Japanese, which is really kind of cool.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, so that was their original inspiration. It's kind of neat. Other than that, like a lot of it is like more or less generic, except for one that is very funny. This character is described as sexy pilot, 18 years old, ethnic group Hispanic, based off of Jennifer Lopez. Description: very slim, only thing large is chest. You want to guess which character this is?
I know. I've seen the memes about this.
It's Skylar, which is very funny. People going, "I love Latinas" and stuff. It's very, very, very humorous. Just the fact that this design doc listed her as like a sexy pilot. The thing that made me laugh is everything is slim except for the chest, which is large. When I read that, I laughed. But yeah, a lot of different design documents for gym leaders, which is really cool. You get to see like kind of the ideas behind a lot of them and what inspired them. Berg is inspired. I forget which one is Berg, but he's inspired by Johnny Depp, which is kind of cool. So that is
Berg is he's the bug gym leader who's a painter.
Yeah.
He's the one who's like kind of effeminate.
Yeah, so he's inspired by Johnny Depp, which is kind of funny. Drayden was inspired by Hulk Hogan. So a combination between combination between Hulk Hogan and like classical artists. So it's kind of funny. So, but like a lot of cool stuff with that, or like you get the full kind of like design, but on these characters. But other than that, of course, we couldn't leave out the biggest thing that has come from this leak is Gen 4 or 5. And I wouldn't say this is the biggest thing in terms of like what I find the coolest, but it's the biggest thing in terms of what has reached the internet. Around Gen 4 or 5, there were mythology. I forget which game it was, but there's like that museum that had like the mythology aspects to it, where it had like some myths.
Yeah, it was the Diamond and Pearl, the Sinnoh dames.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and in the original Japanese, it said way back when Pokemon and humans even married, and that was all we got in the game. Legends Arceus also had a plot line where a dude had kids with a Frostlass, but besides that, it was just like kind of vagaries on Pokemon and human relations. Not anymore. As one female worker back from Game Freak put the freak in Game Freak. And unfortunately, some Pokemon lines have now been irreparably ruined in the public consciousness. So we'll go through some of them. Ones that kind of have a lighter tone to their story. Rapidash and Ursaring both have stories where they're being hunted by hunters, and then they talk to the hunter and they're like, "Hey, don't kill me." And the hunter's like, "I'm so charmed by your beauty that I want to marry you." And then they get married, and both the Pokemons don't really... There's no like explicit things, but both the Pokemon say like, "Oh, these these Ponyta, treat them as your children," that kind of thing. It doesn't say like they are his children, but more like give them, like, don't hunt them and that kind of thing. So it's like, it's kind of like that ancient folklore kind of thing where it's like,
yeah,
just kind of weird, but not explicit. Can't be said for everything, unfortunately. Octillery. There's a story about a man going down to the beach, and it explicitly says the man had relations with the Octillery, enjoyed having relations with the Octillery so much that he came back every day and would have relations with the Octillery before throwing it into the sea. It literally says he had relations, enjoyed it, and then threw it into the sea afterwards. So
that's what we call aftercare.
Yeah, so this man and this Octillery were definitely having some fun. Then the Octillery comes into him in his dream and says, "I can't come to see you anymore, but I will drop off our child. It is the child between you and me," it says explicitly. So take care of it. So it turns out to be a human child, despite the fact. And then the human doesn't know why, but it gets like a super weapon, and this is kind of where the myth breaks down, and then it starts killing Ursaring in the forest and stuff, and it's kind of weird. It genocides a bunch of Ursaring. So yeah, it's strange. The big ticket ones. First is the slacking one, where it's the myth. It's kind of a very old myth that was common back in the day, and that's kind of the lens that you have to look at these at, are myths, because a lot of people are looking at these at like modern stories, and that's not like, obviously they're fucked, but there's a reason why they weren't put in the game, and that's because they didn't want to, like, they're very based off of traditional myths that are very similar to this. So
Yeah.
So these next two ones, that's where they kind of come from. So the Slackoth one is a girl and her friends basically murdered Slackoths whenever they ran into them because they thought it was fun to kill Slackoths and torture them. So one day she like goes to sleep and she wakes up at a pond, or no, she runs into a Vigoroth who scares her so much that she passes out. She passes out and she wakes up at a pond where the Vigoroth has now transformed into a Slacking. He's evolved into a Slacking. And there are a bunch of other Slackoths and Vigoroths throwing the corpses of the Slackoth that she and her friends have killed into the lake. And a lot of them have scars from what her and her friends have done. She is traumatized by this and she passes out. She wakes up back at home, and 9 months later she has a Slackoth child. The implications of that are left very clear to the reader. She is traumatized and she stays away from her friends, but her friends eventually come to visit her while she's out one day, see her Slackoth child, and kill it. And then she is obviously horrified, and she takes the child to the lake and drowns herself in it with the child. Very stock standard myth stuff, but obviously people in the modern day are very affected by it. So very much a tale like, don't treat things horribly or else you'll get your comeuppance, told in a very fucked up way, but that's how myths were.
Yeah.
The final one is just horrid. Typhlosion will never recover from this. A girl goes into a forest to collect herbs for her family. A Typhlosion says, "Oh, it's getting late out. You want to come stay in my cave?" She says, "Sure." And he says, "Yeah, I have some berries you can eat, and don't worry, you can go the next day." Turns out that's not true, as he makes her forget all about her family, has relations with her, makes her have a child that the other stories, they've either been a Pokemon child or a human child. This one, very specifically, it says it is a hybrid Pokemon human child that is like, doesn't fit into society, basically. And then the girl's father comes and murders the Typhlosion. And she has to go back and live on the fringes of society with her new hybrid child. And the moral of the story is that apparently Typhlosions are part human. That is the moral of the story. So all Typhlosions are part human, apparently, according to the story, because of this. Which is, it's a little more muddied than the other ones. And it's also like the Typhlosion gaslighting, who was explicitly stated as a young girl in the thing. And so now Typhlosion is seen as the creeper Pokemon online. So
fun fact, this is actually the reason why Typhlosion sprites have been so bad for generations. The Game Freak animators
all I'm saying,
like, you know what?
Feels real good to be a Feraligatr fan right now. That's all I can say. But yeah. So Slacking and Typhlosion will never recover from these stories. A lot of more people are now very horny for Octillery, so which is
it's a shame they weren't already. Like, how is this the difference maker?
Not surprising coming out of Japan. But yeah, that's basically the fallout of that. It's very, very funny, and as somebody who has took a lot of history classes when I was in college and stuff, because it was my minor, some of them being myth related, this is not like uncommon at all. It seems very stock standard for the myths, but like rewritten with Pokemon instead of like...
I do not want to hear about your minor study.
But anyway,
But yeah,
yeah, very,
I can
very,
even like I can see like I can see the process with these.
yeah. It's
Where like,
just,
you start out with like, okay, what is like the most like one to one, like literally take the myth, find and replace,
yeah,
add in some of the themes we want to go for specifically. And then that's your starting point. And then from there you can kind of like pare them down. It's like, okay, how do we turn this into something we put in our children's video game? Like I can see the process for it.
it's very much just like the ancient myths, but replacing like animals and demons with the Pokemon instead. So it's fine. And to be fair, Typhlosion's I believe Typhlosion is based off of a yokai in real life. It's based off a yokai, and that's what the story is. Literally the yokai's story, like 1-to-1. So it's the yokai being a creep essentially. So it makes sense in that sense, where it's like they're literally just taking the thing it's based off of and replacing it in the story. Obviously, it was some kind of creative like exercise to kind of give them the kind of ideas to make mythology in the Pokemon universe, and that's fine. I don't have any issues with it personally, but obviously some people take umbrage, as we've
Yeah.
seen online. quite a bit of
As the
issues.
saying goes, there are two bad things about being a Pokemon fan. One is that you're a Pokemon fan, and even worse is that you have to deal with Pokemon fans.
Yeah, it's like that one Crossroads meme, and it's the the kid going down the crossroads, and it's like Pokemon fans making their choices. They go into puberty, and it's like liking Pokemon or liking underage girls. So, choose your choice? But yes, the other really cool thing that came out of this leak was there's a design document, and there's a lot of other myths based around like Arceus that are really weird. Like Arceus also had sex with a human, yeah, and had 2 kids, and those kids were what's it called? Dialga and Palkia. With they had relations with a human and had Dialga and Palkia, and then Dialga and Palkia then went on to have relations with each other and have the Lake Trio. So it's a little weird, but it very much fits in with mythology.
Yeah.
But they have like this whole design document how all the Pokemon gods relate to each other, which is really cool. And I'll see if I can find, because somebody translated it.
Oh, that's neat.
And how like they all kind of coalesce into like this one kind of thing. Let's see if I can find it, because I did see a translated version. Yes, here it is. Okay. So here you go. I'm gonna give this to you. So as we can see, there's kind of like Arceus in the middle, Dialga and Palkia are its 2 direct, and then the Lake Trio, kind of opposite the Lake Trio are Rayquaza, Kyogre, and Groudon. And then there are like little I don't know what's called, pantheons, I guess, where it's like it has the bigger gods like Regigigas, and then it has servant gods for each of them, like Regice, Regirock, and Registeel. So Ho-Oh also has Entei, Raikou, and Suicune as its servants, and then Lugia has Zapdos, Moltres, and Articuno as its servants. Then we zoom out a little bit, and kind of we find that a lot of the pseudo-legendaries are actually gods, or considered gods in like this original design document, like Metagross and Gyarados and Tyranitar. Dragonite, and then there's also Latios and Latias there, and a couple others that like aren't directly translated. Then we zoom out even further, and we see the mythicals like Mew, Celebi, Deoxys, Jirachi, and some others that people aren't certain on. But like it's kind of like a cool. You can kind of see the idea behind their mythology that they were designing, and it's kind of cool, and it's kind of sad that we don't get as much in the modern games, I feel like, on this subject, really.
Yeah.
Where it's like they're definitely building up to this kind of like how everything relates to each other, and like even having like Metagross and like Gyarados and stuff like being related to it.
Yeah, which I think is really interesting. I think you can even see where, I think you can see with the ones that don't have like direct, obvious translations that this is maybe like a part of them like trying to think out of the designs for like future Pokemon.
Mm-hmm. I think some
Like
of
before
them.
they decided what like their pseudo legendary for the generation was gonna be, like you could
Mm,
see them thinking like, okay, maybe have this be something that plays off of Groudon.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and
But that's just like my first thought looking at it.
I think people were speculating like the Diahabu Sand and Gordon were Garchomp, Cresselia, and Darkrai, I think is what they were saying. So that's what those three were. Um, and then I believe Shaman and Manaphy are the Berthley and Semali, but we just couldn't people couldn't specifically determine them. So
Okay.
so that's why like they had, and I believe like because this was Gen 3 going into Gen 4, I think, right? Yeah, this is when they were going
Yeah.
into Gen 4. So that's why like the bottom is like that's Groudon, Cresselia, and Darkrai. It's like they didn't, or Garchomp, Cresselia, and Darkrai, sorry. And obviously they didn't have the perfect ideas for them, I guess, as they were developing Gen 4, like they weren't sure what they were going to be. So yeah, that makes sense. Where it's like kind of like, what are we doing with these? But people were making jokes. They're like, oh, it's funny because in like the official Gen 4, you can see, or is it Gen 5? You can see like they kind of have like a watered down version of this, but with Giratina just like plastered onto the side, basically, which is funny.
Oh, yeah, I think I remember that.
So yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing that we don't, we probably won't see anything on in the future, which is sad. But it's kind of interesting to see like the idea behind what they were doing back then and what they were designing around.
Yeah,
it's interesting. And that's the things that I like from this leak is the interesting stuff that we never would have seen, like that, and like the beta sprites and stuff. It's cool. It's not an excuse for some of the shittier things that came out with this leak. Obviously, like people's direct information. So
yeah, that's pretty messed up.
It's pretty shitty. But obviously, there's some cool stuff coming out from leaks. Obviously, there's also stuff from the modern games. We can touch on it very lightly. How many products do you think are in development? I should say, how many games do you think are in development from Game Freak right now? If you had to guess.
3 at most 4.
3 is correct. Yes. So obviously ZA, Gen 10, and then another one, which I'm not going to really touch on much. But do you want to guess what company they're partnering with to make that one?
Oh, what company?
You want to take a guess? It's Game Freak and somebody else.
Just tell me.
ICLA. So you might not like that one. Of course, the devs behind Pokemon Go. So. But yeah, that's we don't know much about that one. I think people were speculating it was going to be an MMO, but that was proven wrong. Which it was proven that it wasn't actually going to be an MMO. But it would be cool if a Pokemon MMO was going to come out. That would be cool, but yeah, that was proven to be false. That's the only thing that I heard about it, is because originally people were just saying a Pokemon MMO, and then earlier this week people were like, no, that's not true. It was fake news.
Oh, that's good, because MMOs are literally a scourge upon this earth.
I think MMOs can be done well, but it has to be put a lot of care into it. Has to do something different, Can't just be the wild.
I also just hate
76.
MMOs as a
Oh, no, fair. I mean, I do as well.
As a general rule.
The only one I really play is RuneScape, and that's very different from every other MMO, so. But that's basically it for the Pokemon leaks. Like I said, obviously some more modern day stuff, but I haven't looked into it just because I don't want to get spoiled on stuff. And I know Cory doesn't want to get spoiled on stuff either. So,
Yeah.
Oh, one other thing I did see. Legends ZA was originally supposed to release November 2024. It got delayed. Do you want to guess the reason why?
Why?
Nintendo asked them to delay it because they wanted it to be a launch title for the Switch 2.
Oh, you know what? That makes sense.
So, yeah, we know the Switch 2 is coming 2025. But ZA was originally supposed to be the November this year, but they delayed it. And when I saw it was delayed, I was like, damn, Game Freak actually delaying games now. You know, they're only working on 3 projects. Like, maybe they're really putting time into it. But no, it wasn't Game Freak's decision. It was Nintendo asking them to. Yeah. But it's still funny nonetheless. And hopefully, with that extra time, they'll be able to polish it and make it good.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll do some of that time on polish and not just on porting it to Switch 2.
Yeah. So we'll see what the future of Pokemon holds. For now, I'm not looking too far into the leaks from this point forward. I've gotten the cool stuff that I want out of it. The beta sprites and mythology stuff. Very neat.
Yeah. Going back to mythology stuff for a little while, it is kind of interesting because you can see some stuff that's like kind of missing from the games.
Mm-hmm.
Like specifically with like what myths we did from what's in the game. Like there's obviously that element of like there is that element of like people were killing Pokemon and that was bad. Mm-hmm. But we don't get any of the like the reverse element of it. Is that like, you know, like up until that connection made, Pokemon were like actually dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that you know, I feel like we do kind of hey quit doing on this.
Well, imagine being that one dude, waking up one day and your wife reveals herself to be the like super god, and your 2 kids are like the god of time and space. You're just like, what?
I mean, I can relate because my wife is a goddess.
So true. So true.
I really hope she's not asleep. If she heard me say that, she'd probably kill me.
You'd be like, what? It's a compliment. What?
Yeah, so that's one thing that's interesting that we missed out on, and that they did actually end up bringing back from Legends Arceus, but with less folklore and more like actual lore.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, Legends Arceus had that one quest with the Frostlass where the dude had 2 snow runs with her and was like, oh, I thought they were all human. And it's like, how did that happen? That's a little strange.
It seems normal to me. And then, oh yeah, and then one other element is about the kind of mythology and like the pantheon being like meticulously mapped out.
Yeah.
Interesting element to that is that with us not getting that like more detailed extended one, is that if we had a more detailed extended one, Giratina's absence would have been felt more if it wasn't in it at all.
Yeah.
Which would have been like a good like storytelling moment for it, but I ultimately understand why they didn't include that like really detailed extended pantheon, because like now sometimes you don't want to raise the questions. Sometimes it is not worth the hassle.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting to look at, but obviously they pivoted a bit away from it. But I'm glad that they didn't pivot into actual edginess, as a lot of their meeting notes were like, should we become more edgy, basically.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that also does kind of line up with specifically what they have said in public interviews.
Mm-hmm.
A lot about like the switch from Gen 2 to Gen 3. Because like in Gen 2 they had like a very strict like a top-down order to have everything be be like everything like be like a very cutesy rounded edges type of thing. And in Gen 3 they said that they like made a conscious decision that they wanted the designs to start being more complicated,
Mm-hmm.
like with Groudon and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of see in those beta sprites, you can kind of see the interplay between like, like the extremes of what they cannot do, and then what they ultimately kind of settled with between like the extreme. 1 second, I had to murder my dog.
Okay. I'll be back for a second as well. Oh.
And by kill, I of course mean spray the corner of the ottoman with no chew spray.
I'm back as well.
All right. But yeah, the early gen data mine leaks were cool. Oh, I also saw we got confirmation that they did actually intend Cyrus to be coded as having autism.
Yeah, I think in the original design document for him it said something along those lines.
Yeah, which is really cool, I think.
Yeah. And there's also like another one like cool, just like offhand thing that I remember is Blaziken and Latias were originally the same Pokemon. they were one and the same.
Yeah, I know that's been like kind of a known thing for a while. I'm glad we got more details on it.
We got the sprite of it, like, and everything. So let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, we got the official Latias Blaziken sprite, which is kind of cool. Just because that's been like a thing for like a while where people know about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of other cool sprites that I'm sure in the future you can peruse at your leisure. Like when people have like a did you know? But there's that one. And then the back profile for that.
Yeah, it'll be cool to see the did you know gaming now that they're like actually good.
Yeah. And like the what is it? The genies were originally we just have like one genie and it's like a super buff dude and the cloud just covering his genitals basically. So that's a funny one.
Yeah, originally the cloud was only covering one leg.
Yeah. And like the Panseer and Pansimian and stuff, they were originally like very different in their design. Like one of them was like a fatty, and like the other one was prim and proper and stuff. So like instead of being what they came out to be.
Alrighty.
But that's really all I have to say on the Pokemon. Very, very cool stuff. I'm sure there'll be more cool stuff in the future that we'll see. Basically.
Yeah. I still hate leakers.
Yeah.
I hate them.
Leaker definitely did some lame shit with this. And there's like a couple of people I think involved, not just one, so very lame that was allowed to happen.
Yeah. Glad we got the cool beta information, just not glad about some of the supplementals to that. We
have officially supported Latina in Pokemon.
Yes.
Sonic, I love Latinas. But yes.
I hate that he's holding a passport in that stupid meme. Hate it.
But moving on from Pokemon, we have a very confusing chapter from Hunter x Hunter today.
Very confusing chapter. I think the ending brought it back together for me. But yeah, definitely a very confusing beginning.
Yeah, it's definitely some theory talk we got to talk about when we get through it. But I'll kind of read through it pretty fast. And if you have something to say, stop me. So first time we start off is day 10, Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. So we're going back in time a little bit. A lot of time jumps in this chapter. So we're starting off back in time before some of the stuff from last chapter, although not from before all the stuff in last chapter, because we see. I'll just go into it. It's confusing.
Yeah.
Third Prince Zhang
This is post the conversation between Karapika and the Bill and the new character, but before beyond Netero's little stint at the end of last chapter.
Yeah. Okay, so third Prince Zhang, if you, 5th Prince Tubepa, and 14th Prince Webble are the last two remaining, the 5th and 14th princes will renounce the throne in support of you. To which Zhang says, I see, Prince Webble perhaps, I didn't expect Prince Tubepa to agree, and they agreed to put it in writing. Yes, in return, Prince Webble is asking that Sakata and Hashihito extend their support indefinitely. Then we go over to Tubepa. So Kurapika entered into the truce and agreed to our alliance. Yes, on the condition that both the Queen and the Prince accompany him when he comes here to room 1005. The 3rd Prince's guards also demand to attend in the interest of information sharing. Tubepa says they're more than welcome. I wouldn't even mind if Prince Webble came to live here. Then we get Rihan saying they're colluding with Prince Webble, or rather Kurapika. Back to Zhang, your reward, your second, I believe. Once you reach a certain number, you should be rewarded even further. He hands a coin over to this dude whose name I never remember. Says, yes, sir, my humble pleasure. Then Zhang says, if you carry it with you at all times, it will surely bring you good fortune. And then he thinks, a semi-surrender is a step forward, though I have my doubts whether a renunciation would even be valid in this succession. But this coin, I thought something would happen after 10 days, but it seems it has no effect if I'm the one holding on to it. Then we go to Tubepa. Says 4th Prince Jordanich didn't come to the banquet after all, so collaborating with me isn't important to him. Now that 1st Prince Benjamin guards are coming after me, I can't be choosy. Nothing would be better than this pact turning Benjamin's focus upon Zhang. And she says, at the next class, as much as you can, impress upon the 1st Prince's guard how close we are to Prince Zhang. Okay. So a couple things. First off, Zhang handing out his coins, still not knowing what they're doing, is happy with this deal because it means he's in alliance with them and can get a semi-surrender, but he also isn't sure that it can even go through. So obviously, basically, the implication here is that Zhang will probably betray them if worse comes to worse at the end. But then we also have Tubepa right afterwards saying that this alliance was a twofold agreement for them. One point was to get Kurapika to work with them, and the other point was to get Zhang as a distraction, essentially, for Benjamin, so that Benjamin thinks that Tubepa doesn't care about the succession war when they still do. So, interesting. We get to see these characters kind of a little bit deeper into their thoughts.
Yeah. It's also supremely interesting to me the way that Kurapika has ended up being kind of at the center of the story, where it's like he's probably not necessarily the strongest Nen user on the ship by any means.
No.
I mean, he's like, definitely incredible, but it's more the fact that, like, among the princes that did not already have Nen, he is the main source of information and power for them. So, like, it makes a lot of sense that Zhang and Tubepa would end up being some of his quickest allies.
But Then we have Tubeba's Nen Beast finally appearing. And made a little minor yap from Rihan. Tubeba's Nen Beast appeared right after the signing of the peace treaty. It could be a coincidence, but if this timing has any meaning, it must be conditional. So Rihan is starting to make his deductions. Togashi's making it very, very clear that Rihan is present in this chapter by having him be like in the front of all the panels where Tubeba is showing. He wants to make it very clear that Rihan is an active player in this, and it honestly, in my opinion, doesn't look good for Rihan. I think he is barking up the wrong tree. But I think we'll see when we get there. There's no knowing until stuff happens, basically. But we cut to the next page. Balsalimiko, second in command to Benjamin, is testing out a little air shooter from his shoe. And then he takes out some syringes and says, our military created numerous weapons of mass destruction. This one was considered a failure when flaws were found during its development, but it's the perfect silent killer under the right circumstances. The initial symptoms resemble the stomach flu, and the timing and vectors of infection can be easily obscured. We can use existing infection prevention protocols to limit collateral damage. The surface proteins are fragile and unstable, denaturing in less than 30 seconds in the air. But once in the human body, the pathogens proliferate rapidly, leading to death in 12 hours or multiple organ failure. It even hastens decay and is subsequently outcompeted by prefactive bacteria, leaving no trace in an autopsy. In a room without circulating air, anyone who breathes in at the epicenter will have a 100% infection and death rate. It multiplies quickly, so we've been limiting its use due to the high risk of spontaneous mutations, but in this case, it necessitates deployment. Then we see him loading it into his shoe, and he says, I will use this to delete 9th Prince Hockenberg. So... definitely Benjamin's camp put a high priority on Hockenberg last time we saw them. And it seems to be going into action here. Kind of as we'll see a little bit later into the chapter. With an offhand comment is the rest we see from this for now. But for now, it's kind of in the background. And something that I realize at this point in the chapter is that this is we're getting like almost every prince's POV in this chapter, essentially. So that we're just going through all the princes and saying, like, here's what's happening with all the princes right now. And it's happening in a very quick time frame, like I thought it might when they gave us the time in the last period, in a very confusing time frame. So, in my opinion, that's because stuff's about to happen. But with Hulkenberg and Balsalimiko, we don't know what happened yet. And we cut away to day 11, Wednesday at 8 a.m. How many seconds? It's 9.67 seconds. To which Reddit says, ooh, finally, less than 10. This will take a while. Try again in 10 seconds. Then we have Salkov, who says, finally, it took me a whole year to get to that point, and I've known Setsu since birth. Whoops! Hold on, stop the reading for a second. So basically, the implication here is that he's one of Beyond's children that we have just learned of from last chapter. He doesn't know it, though, very clearly. But that's at least the implication that we're getting from I've known Zetsu since birth. You don't give us that lore drop last chapter and then say that, and not as like a essentially, yeah, this is a confirmation on this character.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, I thought the 10-second barrier was supposed to be hard to overcome. What took 6 months for me takes a single day for Seri. He's in a league of his own. You're doing great. Your speed is remarkable. Considering his temperate, this monster could use Nen for politics only for his own self-interest. Theta is right. Something has to be done. But according to her, Seri activated some kind of ability during Zetsu. Even among specialists, he's breaking all the rules. Zetsu must be the trigger for the Nen Beast to activate all the aura it's been storing up, but I can't eliminate the possibility that Theta was manipulated by his guardian spirit beast when she was attacked and is a reliable source of the truth. I haven't seen this Prince's Nen Beast yet, after all. So, a little confirmation on how Salkov believes his power work is that it stores the Nen and then uses it while in Zetsu, which is nice confirmation, because before he was shutting off his Nen, and so it was like, how does his power work when he just completely turns off his power? But now it's like he's storing it at all times, and then once he shuts off his Nen, it uses it, essentially. So that's a nice theory, at least. We have Sari's butler, whose name I don't remember. Too many characters in this arc. Says, Your Highness, regarding the hunter called Melody. He says, And then Salkov thinks in his head, I can't do much until I have more information. Then the butler resumes, the Justice Department suspects her involvement, meaning she's still detained. Also, Prince Benjamin must have had the same idea, as his soldiers haven't left the area. Sari says, just don't let Big Bird Brain get to her first. I keep asking to see her, find out what she's thinking, and win her over. Salkov chimes back in. His Zetsu is uninterrupted while running, gaming, and carrying on a conversation. You need to train for years to do that kind of thing. Hell, I can't do that. Stop. Don't think about it. I'm going to lose faith in myself just for hanging around this guy. Hats off to you, Theta. So yeah, we see Sari is working very, very much towards his goal of becoming a better net user, and is kind of blowing through records. If we've seen our previous characters as 1 in 100,000, Sari's definitely like 1 in a million. Like he's very much far and ahead. Has a better proclivity for Nen than anyone else that we've seen in the series, basically.
Yeah. And probably one of the worst moral compasses.
Yeah.
I do have some thoughts about his ability in these couple of pages.
Yeah.
Specifically, so I sent you a comedy theory a day or so ago. Spoiler alert, I'm actually not joking. I think Sari is going to kill himself, or at least he can kill himself. So here's a crackpot theory from me. Is that all of this constant time traveling, even in 10-second intervals, is going to end up aging Sari faster, or like having some sort of like deleterious effect on his lifespan. Specifically with the idea that his ability and Emperor time have a lot in common, I think. Or potentially a lot. That is a route I could see it going down. There's nothing that we know for sure. But specifically, I see Sari has a time-based ability, and he is a proficient multitasker. And he seems like the type to make very constant use of that ability, not just for his own personal gain, but for his own personal enjoyment, and just for the sake of training that ability up to be stronger.
Okay.
So, my theory right now is that Cyrenic is shortening his own life by doing this. Or at least there is going to be some big drawback to it that is going to specifically be a point of comparison with Kurapika's abilities.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
my current
see
theory
it happening, or at least like you said, like a kind of thematic point of interest between him and Kurapika.
Yeah. And even if it isn't even if that specific point, I do still want to point out there is a lot of parallels between his abilities and Kurapika's at the moment. Specifically, Kurapika's is Emperor Time. His ability deals with time. The whole point of Kurapika's ability is that it is multifunctional. And in this scene of Cyrenic training his ability, he's specifically focusing on being able to use it while multitasking. I just think that there's some stuff there to dig into that makes me think that the ability will have some kind of a drawback similar to Emperor Times.
Yeah. I think that is a safe theory. I think I agree that it's going to bite him in the ass in some way. Because, that kind of comeuppance is deserved for a character like that.
Yeah.
So, moving on. This is where the chapter gets confusing. Alright, so we go back 2 hours. 6 a.m. on day 11. And we start with a picture of Fugetsu with a mark in her back. Kacho, the Nen beast. Kacho. said, I saw this when she was changing. It's like a bug bite. She didn't have this before our escape. Melody says, it could be an injection site too. Katru says, that's not possible. We went back to our room and they brought us here right after that. Melody says, I know it's most likely a mark made by Nen. Katru says, Mark. Melody responds, some Nen powers involve a multi-step process. Prince Fugetsu probably fell into a trap and got marked. Didn't she say something weird yesterday? Then we have a flashback to Fugetsu saying, I can use Magic Worm many times in one day now. To which Katru says, so you're saying an enemy ability is the reason why she thinks she can use it more than once a day. Melody says, get her to use her ability. There should be 2 doors. One is a trap. Show it to her and persuade her not to use it anymore. Katru says, persuade. Once she knows it's not her, she'd stop, right? Melody says, I hope so. She's showing signs that she might be addicted. Which Katru says, you mean she was injected with some sort of drug? That's terrible. Melody says, I can't think of any other reason for such a drastic change over a short time. At first I thought one of the princes who came to see me was using her to negotiate, but that wasn't the case. If she keeps using the enemy's ability, she'll keep getting weaker and won't last until next weekend. This must be an ability that indiscriminately attacks whoever gets trapped. Katru says, what should I do? Melody says, find out who's doing this and get them to stop, but it'll be difficult to find them without any clues. Katru says, someone does come to mind, though. So before we go to the next bit, I want to talk about this really quickly. Basically, Melody's saying that her power didn't change when Kacho died, like we thought it did, but instead she also got infected like at the same time. And so she can still only use it once a day, but she thinks she can use it multiple times a day because she's been infected by whatever Nen thing she got infected by.
Yeah, some sort of ability that gives her a copy of his ability.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's what's going on here. But other than that, this is pretty straightforward. They're about to accuse someone now. As we go on to the next page, we see that it is Luzurus. Melody says, 7th Prince Luzurus. Kojo says, yeah, he manages the mafia and deals drugs to raise funds. Kaisar says, I see. Now, fun thing that I just want to pause and comment on here. We have changed locations. The chapter did not mention it. Nothing was mentioned, but previously we were in Melody's cell. Now we are in Kaiser's office at a later time. The location and time has changed, although it doesn't say anything in the chapter, basically. So, take that into account going forward as we talk about this chapter somewhere.
Yeah.
So Katru says, I bet...
Very interesting.
Yeah, no, go on.
Very interesting coming up because I think a lot of the characters are just wrong this chapter.
Either wrong or intentionally doing the wrong thing to mislead other characters, basically.
Yes.
So Katru says, I bet it's his guardian spirit beast. Melody says, even if that were true, he's not consciously making the attack, so it would be impossible to persuade him. Katru says, so the only way to stop it is to defeat the prince or the Nen beast itself. We have to take action right away. Melody says, I know how you feel, but we can't rush in blindly. We need a surefire plan. Katru says, I have just a plan. Getty had been testing what she can do with her ability. I don't know if there's a barrier around the ship itself, but the door didn't open when she imagined a place off the ship. But it did connect to the room where the lifeboats are kept, and she got inside the lead one. So we can go there again at any time, but there are things we haven't been able to test yet. And that's whether other people besides you can go inside. Yes, I think it will work. On the way out, the door closes when Getty goes in, and on the way back, it closes the moment I get inside the tunnel. We made the butler play with us when we were kids. So I'm pretty sure other people can go in before us. I want to try this out with you, Melody. Which Melody pauses and says, Kacho, you'll need more people for your plan. Someone who can carry Prince Luzurus to a lifeboat while he's knocked out with my flute. Kacho says, ideally we would have Prince Luzurus agree to an escape plan and get on a lifeboat voluntarily, but I don't think he's that stupid. Your ability would make sure it happens. Even better would be if we could poison or strangle him on the spot. To which Kaiser responds, no, it would be much better to make it look like an accident. Kaiser says, I'll be the mule. Have it done while you're getting questioned to establish your alibi. He says, Prince Luzurus' guards would claim to be deceived by your music, but that's not a problem. There will be traces of drugs in their urine and hair, So we can say they're lying to cover up for their hallucination. The prince overdosed spontaneously, tried to escape, and had a heart attack. Sounds plausible. HxH says, well, Melody says, sounds like a fine plan, but there's one major problem. Where will you connect the door? HxH says, Prince loses red room, and Melody says, Fugetsu will need to get there first, right? And she responds, yes. Kazu says, I don't get it. Can you explain? Melody says, Fugetsu needs to have actually been to a place to use her door to get there again. HxH says, in this case, his bedroom. Kazu says, all right, I can take care of that. Come up with a reason why Prince Fugetsu has to personally meet with each prince. We'd accompany her so there's no danger of assassination. Kazu says, each prince, not just Loserus? Kazu responds, it would be best to maximize the places you can go, right? It'll cover our tracks and come in useful later. Kazu says, yeah, that would be convenient. Okay, how does this sound? And then she explains to him her idea. Kazu says, not bad. Everyone would be interested in a letter containing Prince Kacho's last message, and as long as we guarantee their safety, it's likely they'll accept. For security reasons, showing up at their quarters unannounced isn't unnatural. Kacho says, I'm not sure they let a lower-ranked prince inside and accept it personally. I'm sure Prince Loser has a lot of stuff he'd rather not show you. Kaiser says that will depend on my negotiating skills. Worst case, I could force an excuse to search his quarters, warn Prince Fugetsu. Kaiser says, so I told you how I feel already, right? And Melody says, yes, I'm well aware. Let me just make sure there's no turning back after this. Are you sure you want to risk everything? And Kaiser says, of course. I'm not just doing this out of my feelings for you. It's because I think it would be best for Prince Fugetsu to take the throne and change the whole system. Having Prince Kacho by her side would protect her from her mother's meddling as well. Melody says, I don't detect a change in his heartbeat. If I can figure out his true intent, I'll have to assume he's on the enemy side. Kaiser continues, I didn't join the Justice Department to blindly uphold the law. So get the world closer to my ideal, gentler world. At least he or the one manipulating him still considers us useful, says Melody in her head. I have to maintain this relationship for now. Kaiser resumes, I can do the dirty work to make that happen, even if I lose the right to join that gentler world. And then Melody says, in order to protect Prince Fugetsu. So, a lot of shit just got thrown at the wall.
Yeah. And I think it's all really interesting. Number one, we know that Loserus's Nen Beast did not do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I figure even if you didn't want to eat it now, you could have one later, like when you got home. But because the Guardian Spirit Beasts cannot attack directly other princes or other Guardian Spirit Beasts.
Yes, which is what we've been led to believe by Nasubi himself. We don't know if all the characters know this, but
yeah,
we do know that we know at least as the reader that Nen Beasts can't attack each other or the other princes. Now, this could be something like an indirect attack, like because we do know the only thing we do know about Prince Loserus and Nen Beasts is that it lures people in with something that they want, and then traps them at
pseudo-coercive ability.
So it could theoretically,
it does line up with the way his Nen Beast might work, but
it is also like that. Nen Beasts aren't supposed to attack the princes, so there's definitely that's one fact coming into this. Another fact is, where Melody's talking about we need to get Fugetsu into the room because without that Fugetsu can't travel there. This has never been true of Fugetsu's ability. Literally, Fugetsu traveled down to tier 3 despite never being there. Just randomly. So This has never been true of her ability, and this is a complete made-up fabrication by Melody and Kacho, it feels like. At least that's how I see it. I don't know. Because we've had the case of her going down to the 3rd tier, and
that's right.
She hadn't been there, so.
Of course, that was an accident.
Mm-hmm.
So either they're... Oh, 1 second.
Excuse me.
Alright, yeah, so it is either a complete... So I have a... I'm thinking that's either a complete fabrication, or... like it's like an actual lie in order to get this thing to happen, or it's simply a matter of practicality. Like even if she could technically go anywhere she wanted, it's a bit more complicated than that.
Yeah,
In terms of like actually being able to do it reliably.
it could even theoretically be like the second door that Melody's theorizing could be a little bit more unpredictable and like that kind of thing.
Yeah. And there is also the question of which I try to keep this in mind every time. So I always forget to keep this in mind on the first read through of a HxH chapter or of a post-death HxH chapter.
Mm-hmm.
But I always forget to on my first reread and then have to reread it again with this in mind, is that we do not know for sure how accurate the Guardian Nenbeast is to how the actual HxH would behave.
Mm-hmm.
Because, assuming that the purpose of the Guardian Nenbeasts is to bring the Succession War to an end, or is to, like, further the Succession War, this could just be not being done to protect Kacho, but to continue the Succession War. Or not to protect Fudetsu necessarily, but to continue the Succession War.
Uh-huh. Get him!
It's so exciting.
Get him! How dare that dog walk across our yard? That's our property. How dare they?
Don't worry. She'll be back. Okay.
Oh, okay. It was because she left. Sad.
Where was I?
Talking about the purpose of Kacho as an Nenbeast could be to extend the succession contest instead of.
Oh yeah. So we know that Kacho as a person would want to protect Fudetsu at all costs. But considering how gun-ho the Nenbeast is about immediately murdering Luzurus, she's just like, oh yeah, it's probably the Drudge guy. Let's kill him.
I definitely think if there is one character lying here, obviously, I think it's straight up Melody. But I also think the other characters are also not being truthful as well. I think Melody is very much being a little deceitful here. Try to find true intentions.
Yeah. I was gonna wait to talk about it till the end, but I think Melody is a. Well, I think Melody is because during my first read through this chapter, I'm like, Melody seems really out of character right now.
She's definitely up to some stuff.
Yeah. And then also there's I really like, well, number one, I love this I love the backgrounds in this chapter in particular. Yeah. They're all detailed, they're all used very well for conveying space and mood. Mm-hmm. There's a good mix of literal backgrounds to show where characters are, but also just vibes backgrounds.
Yeah.
To convey less concrete information, like the fact that Luzurus' room is surrounded in what looks like drug haze. Incredibly funny. We still we're getting establishing shots of the Black Whale one still moving along to keep us on that forward trajectory.
Yeah.
And I really like the way that all of those backgrounds fall away on the page with a conversation between Melody and what's his name?
Kaiser.
Yeah. The way it's you can really feel that Melody is doing nothing right now but listening to his words.
Yeah.
And trying to come to a conclusion about them.
Yeah. I think another big thing is like right at the end of the part where Melody and Cacho are talking in the cell. Cacho says someone comes to mind, and then we cut to the different location at a different time, and it's like now they're relaying like this whole plan and information to Kaisar. It's like they could have talked about something completely different that we didn't see. They like came up with a plan to do something completely separate, and then told him this information. So it's like we don't know
Oh
what's
yeah,
going on
that's true.
here.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, that's the big thing that I noticed, where it's like the page turn is a new location essentially, and they don't
Yeah.
draw attention to it at all in the chapter. They don't mention it, but it's a completely different place.
So that could be the fact that the conversation carried on or got repeated once they had Kaiser with them,
Mm-hmm.
or there's a big important chunk of the conversation that they are not showing us for now.
Yeah, so we'll see. It's definitely interesting because Melody is our focus character here. She's like our anchor. It's very interesting to not get to see her full thoughts yet. Basically,
Yeah.
we're being obfuscated. Some of the information we're being obfuscated here. So. But continuing onward, we cut now to Kaisar leading a procession of him and a couple of other people from the law department, including the guy that we saw at the beginning of the arc, who set up this whole expedition.
Yeah!
the very
best character of the
very
arc.
cool character. I forget his name, but he's part of the reason why this whole thing is happening. And he, if you don't remember, is on loan to the kind of law, the law group on the ship because they were running low on some people. So him and his other coworker are both on loan to them, basically.
Yeah.
So he's coming with them, and of course we have Fugetsu. They walk up to first Prince Benjamin's quarters. Stopped by somebody who recognized him and says, "Chief," and he Kaiser says, "We'd like an audience with the first prince." One of the guards says, "May I ask why?" He says, "We'd like to personally hand him a letter from 10th Prince Cacho." He says, "Prince Cacho has passed away, but she wrote letters to all the princes while she was alive. She left instructions to personally hand the letters to each prince if she died. We can guarantee that there is no danger of explosives or toxins. We would like permission for Prince Fugetsu to hand the letter to the first prince under our supervision." We get this, one of the named guards of Benjamin, whose name I don't remember because there's too many people, says, "I can take it to him." Kaiser says, "It would be an official proclamation about the succession. Defying a dead prince's wishes could lead to disqualification. Please contact the prince." Prince Benjamin says, "Please let them through." The guard says there's one point of concern, and he says, "What?" And then we show Fugitsu with all of the spirits around her, and we get what might be my favorite moment of the chapter. We see Benjamin saying,
Oh yeah.
"My God, she's on her last legs." She says, "Thank you so much for your audience. May I step over there?" And he says, "Of course." And Benjamin is looking very almost concerned, I feel like, but not strictly concerned, more like feeling sorry for her.
Uh-huh.
And it feels like one of those things where it's like Benjamin definitely has a issue with a lot of the older princes, and he's definitely not the most well-adjusted prince, but here at least it looks like he's very sympathetic to her. And despite holding stuff close to his chest, it feels like you kind of get a little bit of that characterization out of him where it's like he's still a bit sympathetic despite the fact that this is all going on.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like his first thought about this is like it's not, oh, this girl is about to die, I don't have to do anything good. It's like, oh, this poor girl, she probably won't last the week.
Yeah. So she steps closer, and Benjamin's Nen Beast actually scares away all the spirits by letting out like a yell, essentially. And Benjamin says in his head, "They fled. They're low evil spirits that plague someone in a weakened state. They're not 11 Prince Fugetsu's guardian spirit, beast, or a scheme. She is despondent after her sister's death. She won't last 10 days. Nay says, "I accept. Shall I open it now?" Kaiser says, by all means, I will act as a witness if there's any information pertaining to the succession. Benjamin opens it. Says, an ordinary letter, nothing political or worth showing to you. And then he says, you still can't find Musée. Quick refresher, Musée is the guard who Camilla killed to revive herself after he killed her. He has the power where he can like observe things. I forget what it exactly is called, but currently Benjamin is using
he's
that
the
power.
one who he puts owls on people.
Yeah. Currently Benjamin is using that power to keep an eye on Camilla, basically. So, but Musée died. Camilla and Benjamin both know that he died, but unfortunately there's a court proceeding going on right now that relies on them finding Musée, so it's kind of held up in the courts, which is kind of funny. But Kaiser says, no, considering the timing when you closed off the passageway, we focused our search on Tier 1, but haven't found him. We could invoke our authority to conduct a search of all Prince's quarters. Benjamin says, there would be no point. You know there's currently a dispute in court over which has priority, royal privilege, or the military's authority. This doesn't qualify as a national threat to begin with, which is the prerequisite to declaring military law. Kaiser says, true, and then he thinks in his head, I'm glad he falls for leading questions. We then get Kaiser's thoughts where he says, authority has many levels, and the point of contention in court here is about military crises in which someone in the military is a victim. This case does indeed apply, but Benjamin instead brought up martial law, which indicates a higher level crisis of national survival. It's clear he's waiting for an opportunity to implement martial law. He's probably racking his brain while pretending to remain calm over the contents of the letter. He hasn't even noticed he misspoke. I was right to do this while Balsamilko was away. Seeing how the other princes react will be very educational. And so I agree with Kaiser here. I feel like this is multiple chapters in a row where we've gotten the mention of martial law. Kaiser, we don't know what's going on with him, but getting this kind of peek into his thoughts is kind of interesting. Because it's like, it doesn't feel... it feels very manipulative, but it doesn't feel like he's hiding something, essentially. Which is...
Yeah, like it feels like he's definitely a smart guy. It doesn't feel like anything in terms of how he has interacted with Melody feels off based on his internal thoughts here.
Yeah. But then we see a check-in with Tubeppa and Tyson, who both seem to be... well, we can't really tell with Tubeppa, but Tyson seems to be sympathetic. Which makes sense. Also, I wanted to note in this panel, I thought about this when I was reading the chapter, it's the most human-looking we've seen Tyson draw since the beginning of the arc. Like, every time Tyson is like a caricature of herself, essentially. This is the most human-looking we've seen Tyson in the whole arc. Then we cut to Loser's quarters. We hear, well, I'm thankful that you declare my quarters to be clean in exchange for this. Kaiser says, thank you for your cooperation. A major part of our duties is to ensure smooth negotiations between princes involved in succession. Loser says, sorry about your sister. Fugetsu says, thank you for your kind words. He hands it over. He says, wow, what a parting shot. Fugetsu, did Sis ever tell you anything about the letters, or if all the letters are the same? She says, no, she never had a chance to tell me. Mr. says, I guess she didn't want to get you involved. It has nothing to do with the succession, but Mr. Bigwig here should take a look at this. Kaiser has allowed me, and he says, I told Prince Kacho what to write, of course. And then we do the flashback to back in the room, where they're talking. And he says, let's shake up the princes while we're at it. They ask how, and he says, our independent investigations have gathered inside information on other princes, the purpose of which is to maintain and defend our neutrality, a deterrent. They might as well be literal bombshells. Let's use them here to our advantage. Melody says, I see, but how would Kacho know?
Bombshells, am I right?
Melody says, I see, but how would Kacho know any of that? He says, they'll be so desperate to discover the source of the leaks, that's for sure. I'll be there to deflect questions that dig too deep into Prince Kacho. Fun thing to note here, he meant to say Fugetsu, but even in the original Japanese translation, it says Kacho. That was a mistake on the Japanese, original Japanese text, which is kind of interesting. So he's supposed to be saying, I'll be there to deflect questions that dig too deep into Prince Fugetsu. I don't intend for her to return to Tier 1 where it's dangerous until the succession is over. So he's saying he's keeping Fugetsu detained in Tier 2 until the succession war is over, essentially. So then he thinks, I didn't expect, we're back to the current time. He says, I didn't expect Luzarus to hand me the letter. He may be more careful and skeptical than I thought. Then he says out loud, whistleblowing on Prince Serednich. These are all merely rumors. Luzarus chimes up. It says Prince Serednich is the one I wouldn't want on the throne. It could be a defamation campaign as a ploy to get you guys to dig up the real dirt. Believe me, there'll be plenty to find. Not like I can talk. Then we go to Luzarus' thoughts, and he says, something's weird. Her last message wasn't to ask to protect her sister, but is instead filled with bombshells about the other princes. The older sister was pretty smart. Each litter has got to be different. Get the snakes, me, and 4 to duke it out, while she milks the tears on Benjamin to secure her sister's protection. That means it's dangerous to act carelessly. I should bide my time. And then he says aloud, I have no idea whether any of them are true, and I don't care to find out. And he says in his head, let them think I don't trust the letter, and have them handle it. Got to keep the balance. And he says, you can keep the letter. So once again, proving Luzarus is quite intelligent, but he just doesn't want to act on anything, basically. So
it's so funny because he gives himself 2 reasons not to do anything in a row.
It's like I said, if this character actually gets some kind of confidence or like boost, he can actually compete with the other princes, but he's definitely doesn't think highly of himself and would rather just sit back and do nothing and make excuses. So that is how it is.
Yeah. Also, interesting little art detail. I think is Luzarus's bone in the previous page.
Yeah.
It looks a lot like his Guardian Spirit Beast.
Maybe if I squint, I can see it.
Oh no, I'm not saying that. Like, I think that's his Guardian Spirit Beast in disguise or anything like that. I'm just saying.
I get it. I get the parallel you're drawing.
Yeah, like it makes me think about how, like, oh yeah, his Spirit Beast literally does just look like a apparatus for drugs.
But continuing on, we have Kaiser saying, it worked, in his head. And then he says to Fugetsu, if you're tired, we could postpone the rest. She says, I'm fine, I'll do whatever I can. To which you then see the spirit beast from her dissipate, and we see the reason why, as Basho walks up and says, Prince Fugetsu, a moment. I'm Basho, Melody's colleague. She says, oh, nice to meet you. I don't want to overstep, but you just seem really tired. And he hands her the second time since York knew that we've seen him ever use his Nen power. And this time it's like a curse repellent. And it says, pure light of winter, glittering flakes fluttering, grace the frozen path. And it kind of explains, and then activates by the inclusion of words for invocation, light for healing or purification, seasonal words further raise effectiveness. So kind of get a little explanation of Basho's power that we haven't seen yet.
Mm-hmm.
He says, a good luck charm to keep it on you. Wow, thank you so much. This will ward off evil spirits for a while. He thinks in his head, she's still in danger as long as she remains untreated. Melody, it's up to you. And then we get a awkward panel of Kaiser kind of bowing as everyone else walks away. What's happening there? Finally, to end us off, we see it's day 11 at Wednesday, 9:50 a.m. So this is, I think, cutting back before the meeting with him. Or no. This is maybe I'm not sure of the timeline of this, but we don't know if this is before the meetings or after the meetings. If the meetings kind of happen quickly, or if this is like right before they went to do it. But
yeah,
it's at 8:50 a.m. and Katra says, in case Prince Luzarus wasn't the one behind this, we should do it as soon as possible. As soon as Getty awakens. As soon as Getty's awake, do the questioning while she's getting treated in sickbay. Place guards in front of the room, and the alibi will be perfect. Melody says, right, Basho gave us some time, but we still haven't narrowed anybody down. She says, I'll use my ocarina for logistical reasons, but I still won't be able to do anything while I'm playing. Kaiser says, no problem if the tunnel is about 10 meters long, I can carry him myself. He says, that rumbling that happened right above us. Besides us, only Prince Hulkenberg is here in Tier 2. Oh, Melody says that, actually. And then he says, that ability must belong to him or his guardian spirit beast. Is Melody continuing. But Prince Hockenberg himself fell ill. Whether that was planned or unexpected is important. I'd like to know all the details and give him the letter right away when he awakens. Kaiser says, I signed someone I know to attend on duty. And Melody thinks in her head, rather. His letter contains all the information, Prince Benjamin's secret, Prince Doran's depravity, and the truth about Prince Hockenberg's birth, and more information that shakes up the succession itself. Prince Hockenberg will surely make use of it, and one more hope, Karapika. As long as the succession continues, the princes can't escape the ship. Please come up with something so no more princes have to die. And that's the end of the chapter. Very interesting chapter.
Yes.
People are making moves, people are making plays. And centerfold to this chapter, Melody herself seems to be hatching some kind of plan.
Yes. Which, considering Melody is one of the best characters in Hunter x Hunter, man, I say that a lot, I'm very excited to see where it goes.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, we comment again at the end of the chapter, but obviously she's saying right here, please come up with something so no more princes have to die. So kind of opposite of what she was saying earlier, where she's like, yeah, here's how we'll fucking kill Lucerus.
Yeah. We're about to ice that ice-dealing man.
And I also like how in these final chapters we also get Katja saying, in case Prince Lucerus isn't the one who's behind this, we should kill him as soon as possible. Which is kind of funny.
Like, yeah.
Like, just saying, in case he isn't the culprit, we should kill him soon. Like,
it's so funny.
And one other thing I wanted to mention about that kind of situation is Basho. We know Basho's been in there and he's been making friends with Lucerus.
Mm-hmm.
You'd think Melody would be like, here's this person I've worked with for a while now. They've been in the Nosferatu family for a while. They know each other. I can trust him. Why don't we go to him to ask, like, what's up? Like, see if he knows anything. But they don't do that. And that's part of the reason why I feel like this is kind of like a ruse. It's like, why would Melody immediately go to the person that she knows and trusts who's in the quarters and be like, hey, what's up? Like,
mm-hmm.
So.
And it's also very possible that she actually did. She just did it on her own.
Maybe, yeah, that's true. But it's definitely one of those things where it's like, it feels like a trick to catch someone, and presumably that someone is Kaiser, because she doesn't trust him, and he's doing stuff, and she's not sure what to think. So she's using this as a ploy to like catch him in something, essentially.
Yeah. So on my first read through, there were 3 big thoughts that I had. Mm-hmm. Concerning like the Melody Fudetsu Kacho thing. Number 1 is that Melody seemed really out of character right up into the last panel, mm-hmm. or like the last 2 panels. So I'm like, she seems really gung-ho about this whole like murdering Lucerus thing, and then like that last panel kind of revealed that like, oh, she's playing an angle to try and get Karapika and Hockenberg enough information to where like presumably one of them would have the ability and the position to like use this information to put a stop to things. Mm-hmm. The second thing that stands out to me is that like Fudetsu is like really talked about this chapter, but she doesn't really, like, her standpoint is not really talked about almost at all. Like, she doesn't really get to speak much herself.
Right.
Which seems weird to me.
And that's something that I want to touch on is Fugetsu doesn't think Kacho is dead. She's going around delivering these death letters. Like, what does she think of this? Like, that we're doing like a ploy to like trick them or something? Like,
yeah. like it's really odd that we don't get to see more of her thoughts here, because like we know that like they gave her the heads up that everyone thinks Kacho is dead. I mean, she is, but yeah, I do think it's kind of a bummer that we didn't get more of a
right.
Fudetsu like directly in this chapter. Whether that's like we'll get more of her later, or if it's just like literally there was not enough room in these pages for her words.
Well, fun thing to note is this is the chapter with the most princes in it as well, since like the introduction, basically.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
All but Camilla, Miriam, and Wobble appear in it. So
yeah. So also interesting that we didn't get to see every prince's direct reactions.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how much of that is just because, oh, it's unimportant, and how much of it is like, oh, we'll reveal that when it's important.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in particular, I'd be really interested to see Seradnik's response.
And we know from like the information that Melody has gotten from Kaisar, or like that she's included in the letters as well, that now Melody knows that Seradnich is a fucking piece of shit as well.
Yeah.
So it's interesting going forward, especially because she's already like talked to Seradnich's butler and like agreed to possibly do a thing for him, like a performance. So
yeah.
But like we said, Melody it's very much in the camp. She doesn't want any more of the princess to die.
Mm-hmm.
Very true to her character is that final panel and like trying to get that information to Hulkenberg and Karapika, trying to figure out what's happening essentially and make sure the people who can do the most of that information get that information, like you said. And I think it's kind of interesting to note Hulkenberg himself, because like we said, while he's mentioned, we didn't actually see him. And he's mentioned first as like a kind of ploy from Balls, full name Balls me, Benjamin's second in command, who's basically saying he wants to kill him. Like in no uncertain terms, he wants to kill him. And then the next thing we get is the next day. Is it the next day? Actually, wait. Because he said that.
Yeah, because the first part of the chapter is on the 10th.
Yeah, on the 10th at 1:30 p.m. And at the end of the chapter, it's the 11th at 8:50 a.m. And we get them talking about how a rumbling happened right above them, and then the only person is Prince Hulkenberg on tier 2 besides them. And they're basically saying the rumbling must belong to him. But Prince Hulkenberg himself fell ill. What does this mean? Does it mean he's sick, like Balls Similico succeeded in poisoning him? Or does it mean that he used his Nen power and took over somebody else's body? Yeah, for instance. Similico. Did he take over his body? Because we don't know, because he's not awake. He's they say when he awakens, so he fell ill and is passed out essentially right now. So we don't know what happened there. Maybe next chapter we'll see. But definitely something happened in this kind of interim period with Hulkenberg. What happened there?
What happened?
Also,
yeah, it's also I
was just gonna say also the information that she says she has to give to the Hulkenberg. Prince Benjamin's secret.
Yeah, that's what I was about to mention.
Yeah.
And the truth about Hulkenberg's birth.
Yeah. Which is obviously like very present in the mind, is people being like beyond.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know if that's true, if he's Beyond's kid. Like if that's we're just gonna immediately find that out.
Yeah.
I think it's a theory that people are proposing is he has a very similar nose to Benjamin in the First Queen, where they have that like kind of long, elongated nose, And people were like, maybe he's actually the first queen's son instead of being the second queen's. And that's like the truth about his birth or something. That could be it, maybe, but not sure. For now, we just have to speculate. But she also says there's more information that shakes up the succession itself. So presumably there's information on every single prince. Some information about each of them. But the biggest ones are obviously Benjamin Serednik and Hulkenberg, which presumably that information isn't handed out to everyone. But like Loserus said, I'm sure a lot of people got the information about Serednik where it's like, what's happening here? And a fun thing to note is we know Camilla didn't get a letter because she's locked up right now. Or is she locked up? Or I don't know if she's locked up. I know she's under surveillance.
I think she's on like house arrest.
House arrest, yeah. So she presumably she didn't get one because we didn't see her. Merom doesn't get one because it was an MD, and we also didn't see him. And Wobo we only know got one because we see Kurapika reading the letter at the end. But we don't know if they went directly to them or not. Or just like sent the letter or something. So at the end of the day, like not every prince got it, and one that I want to know is we didn't see Serednik getting a letter either. Which obviously would have had some information.
Yeah. Imagine if Serednik was just information about all of his stuff, and he's like, yeah, I know this already.
Well, it's like, even, they also could have just not given him a letter, like, it left him out of it. But it feels like it's one of those things where it's like, the point was to try to give it to as many princes as possible, so why didn't we see, like, that kind of exchange between Serednik and them? Like, should we have seen that?
And it's like that, and it's that kind of question I mentioned earlier of, is that a case of whatever happened was honestly just that unimportant? Like, I could see Serednik just kind of brushing him off. Or Zanelei saying something, that sounds cogent, but really he's just like, yeah, I got no idea.
That's the only other prince.
But it could also be,
I think, as well as Zanelei. So
yeah.
It's like...
But it could also be that whatever happened is important, but it just won't be revealed until it's more relevant.
Yeah. So we don't know, like, Zanelei and Serednik could have gotten some information, but we just don't know yet, like, from what happened, so they could have just not.
Also interesting to note is that we don't know, is that we presumably would get more about Serednik and Hulkenberg's relationship once that information is revealed plainly to him. Because, like, presumably, based on what we know about Hulkenberg, he would no longer be a fan of Serednik if he knew that he cut up young women's bodies for fun.
Yeah.
But we also don't know that for sure.
I mean, we definitely see Serednik, his allies are being lost. Because we see... Or we're in the process of, like, kind of losing that, and I don't think he cares. Yes, we have him. Obviously, this information, if it were to go to Hulkenberg would definitely not like him anymore. But also, we see Tubepa in the earlier chapters saying, like, Serednik didn't show up and, like, talk to me at the banquet or whatever. Like, obviously, he doesn't give a shit about me at all. So, like, why should I care? Basically, like, he's the only prince older than Tubepa that Tubepa actually respected a little bit. And now we see Tubepa even saying, like, he obviously doesn't, like, respect the partnership between us, so why should I care? Which is kind of an interesting thing to comment on, kind of. Especially because she's now entered an alliance with Kurapika, so it's like, we'll see what happened there.
Oh yeah, and then there's also the fact that his mafia family is of basically no use to him anymore.
Yeah, he cut off.
Which we see for, like, Zanelei, that's a potent source of information. We know that presumably Loserus is on, good terms with his, obviously, but Serednik's also lost his entire mafia family.
Yeah. So it's definitely, like, it feels like he's cutting off all the external people, and he's becoming, like, an individual lone wolf, more or less. Which is interesting to kind of see from the perspective of this arc, where one of the points of this arc is, how many people we're introducing and how a lot of the princes have relations to their guards and like how they, like some of them respect them like Benjamin, or some of them just have them as like literal nuclear options like Camilla and that kind of thing. It's like we have Serednik as kind of being built up as our main antagonist partially, maybe Beyond might be more prevalent sooner rather than later, but he's kind of being built up as our main antagonist, and he's being built up in a way that he's kind of cutting all of his ties, whether intentionally or not, with everyone that would support him, to kind of focus singularly on this new power that he's kind of become interested in. So it's an interesting dichotomy with the rest of the arc, especially because he has friends that we've seen before who we've been introduced to who are like wondering, is he okay? Like, what's going on with him? Is he's losing his mind or something? Like, so it's interesting to see from that aspect, I guess. But I'm excited to see what happens next chapter, especially because it is next week again. There was an announcement that came out that basically said, it was from the editor in Japan, and they said they're talking with Togashi about his health, and basically Hunter x Hunter, while it's weekly right now, won't always be weekly, and they will take breaks. And basically they'll tell you at the end of the chapter if we're taking a break before the next one, essentially. So
okay,
it's not going to be weekly for these next like 30 chapters. Probably it'll probably be like 5 and then a break, or 10 and then a break, or something like that. Or he could just do like 1, 2 break, 3, 4, 5 break, something like that. Like, we don't know. Basically, they just said, don't expect it to be weekly every week. Expect us to take breaks, essentially, is what they said. So
3 breaks.
But for now, next week is the next chapter, so we're eating good.
Yeah.
And we'll just have to see where it goes from there. But I think, like you said, this isn't as dense of a chapter. It's more so we just have to examine like the different layers that characters are coming from with this. Like, why are they doing what they're doing? And why are they not making sense as a character? Is it because they're doing something intentionally, or like what's happening? And one thing I want to note is, if I don't think this is going to happen, but we have to like not mince words here. If Togashi ends up dropping the ball and like completely mischaracterizing a character, like Melody, and having her actually like think this is the best plan of action, which I don't think is true because of the final panel, but if Togashi were to actually drop the ball, we can't just like excuse it as like, well, whatever. It's one bad thing, and like it's like we're still going to be critical of that. Like, we both really enjoy One Piece, at least 95% of it. Like, but we're still very critical of it in the modern day, and it's because we like the series and we know that it can be better, basically. So it's like, even if Togashi were to drop the ball on this, it's not like we'd be like, oh, well, whatever, the rest of the arc's fine. It's like you would still be very, very critical of this kind of screw up, essentially.
Yeah, and like I said, like with the Fudetsu part, like, I don't know how much of that is like we're going to get that later, but like I do personally think that her kind of exclusion from having her input at all in this chapter was a thing that I did not like. But that of course can be mitigated or like be fine if like we did it later, or if that is like part of the payoff, or if like literally like we just don't have space, and so like it is something that like will come up later. But like it's still worth noting, Tadashi at this point, like has built up enough goodwill over Hunter x Hunter's entire run that like I am willing to give him the benefit of the doubt 90% of the time.
Pretty much. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and wait to see what he's cooking up before I'm like, why is Melody mischaracterized in this chapter? It feels like it's building up to something very specific that he's writing for a purpose. And I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with this plan to kill Prince Loserus that seems to be so laissez-faire for the characters who are planning it in this chapter.
Yeah. I will also say one thing is that while like I do feel Melody was kind of mischaracterized for a lot of this chapter, which as our current theory is that it's on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I also do think that the act of her choosing to kill another prince is not wholly outside of her character to do.
I think it's not impossible that she could do it, but she's definitely not the character that you'd think when somebody
Yeah,
says
she's not the
this is
character who would like be gun ho immediately.
yeah, this is the person who's causing these issues. She's like, all right, let's kill him. It's not what you
Yeah,
think.
yeah. Yeah. But I do just want to say that because one of the questions I did have, because like I kind of sat down, I'm like, okay, would Melody actually go through with this plan under any circumstances? Like, obviously, these circumstances, it seems a little weird for her to do it, but are there circumstances where she would go through under it? Because, you know that her ultimate overarching goal was to find that other part of the Devil's song or composition or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And she did join the guards of a mafia family on purpose.
Yeah.
So, the idea that Melody would, dirty her hands if she had to, I don't think that's entirely out of character if she does end up doing, something that is offensive in that way. I just want to make sure I have that point clear. It's just that, how gun-ho she is in this chapter particularly is what I find out of character.
For sure. I think it's definitely something where we'll have to see what happens in the future. My prediction, especially because we got lies during this chapter, where they just straight up lied about Fugetsu's power to Kaiser, it seemed like. At least to me, that's how I read it. Because I was like, that doesn't seem to make sense. But to me, it feels like this is a trap to trick Kaiser into a way that they can get him out of the picture, so that they don't have to worry about him. Essentially, not kill him, but get him arrested for trying to kill a prince, essentially, or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Or even because they have they talked about the two doors theory, where it's there might be a second door, maybe send him into the wrong doorway and it leads to a completely different place, and that implicates him or something, or a kind of thing. It's we don't know what's exactly going through their heads right now, because like I said, we interrupted them mid-conversation and then had them cut to a different place and a different time. So it's we don't know if they continued from the same point or if they talked about something different. We don't exactly know what our characters are thinking. And that's fun. That makes it a little fun. Because you go...
Yeah. There is...
with theories and shit.
And there is, of course, the possibility that it's Kaiser who
is manipulating them?
put the who manipulate or who is manipulating Fugetsu.
Okay. I was thinking manipulating the other two, but yeah, that actually makes sense. Because we still don't know,
or someone in that kind of military police force in general.
Yeah, we still don't know if Kaiser's being manipulated, or if he's manipulating himself, or if he even has any powers or anything like that. He's still up in the air as a mystery. So it's interesting to think of, especially because Melody almost certainly thinks he's being manipulated in some way, whether it's by himself or somebody else. So it's
and
she just can't determine his intentions, and that's why she can't trust him. So it's I can understand that.
Yeah. And there's always the possibility of how much is that Melody being reasonable, and how much is that the idea of someone who she can't easily read being so upsetting to her that she just immediately doesn't trust them.
Yeah. Could be.
It's always possible that Melody is the one who's being unreasonable here.
Yeah.
I don't think so, but possible.
But it definitely especially when we see the thoughts of Melody at the end of kind of that them discussing the plan, where she's like, if I can't figure out his true intent, I'll have to assume he's on the enemy side. At least here, the ones manipulating him still considers us useful. I have to maintain this relationship for now in order to protect Prince Fugetsu. It definitely seems like Melody is a very much trying to keep it up for now, just like she said, for that idea of protecting the prince. And like when she sends that letter at the end of the chapter to Kurapika, it doesn't just extend to Prince Fugetsu, but also to the other princes, where it's like, even though she said she's like gung-ho on this plan to kill Prince Luzurus in the letter to Kurapika, she's like, I don't want any more princes' blood to spill, essentially. So it's like, definitely to me, it feels like we haven't gotten the full picture of what's happening here, essentially.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Also, something to note, Melody thinks, like, I have to maintain this relationship in order to protect Prince Fugetsu. Something I thought of in the chapter, but I kind of dismissed, was, what if Kacho, the Nen Beast Kacho, so we know it kind of replicates whichever of the first one of them died and would replicate them for the other person. We don't know if it has any other, like, secondary powers or anything like that. Like, what if...
Oh, yeah, that's true.
What if it has, like, some kind of aura of manipulation or something like that, where it manipulates other people who consider them a friend or something to, like, help out Fugetsu or that kind of thing. Like, we don't know. There could be something
else kind of like kind of like a less obvious version of Sale Sales.
Yeah. Where it's like maybe she is unintentionally kind of like leading other people who are working with her into protecting Prince Fugetsu, because like that's how the Nen Beast works, and they just don't know it.
Yeah.
That's like, we don't know everything about that. Like it's a very, everything is in Hunter x Hunter is confusing in a way that's not frustrating. It's confusing in a way that's like, there could be 7 different solutions and I'm not mad about which one will happen, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's like, I'm not angry that I don't know what's going to happen next, essentially.
Yeah.
Especially because, like, Togashi is a master at his craft. He essentially has made modern shonen to what it is. He's one of the grandfathers of it with Yu Yu Hakusho. So we know he knows what the cornerstone of shonen is, and we know he knows how to break it and mold it into a completely different thing that breaks the traditional aspects of shonen and even like a bit into seinen, because he's become a bit more edgy as the arcs have gone on. Definitely less Saturday cartoon morning friendly for the kids since York knew on.
Yeah.
So he definitely knows how to break those kind of molds, and it's not even like a traditional, like you can't even categorize it as a shonen or a seinen. It's something in between, and that's what kind of makes it interesting. Is like it's its own thing, and he's a master of his craft. So I trust that he'll deliver in a way that'll be satisfying.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
Especially because one of his recent tweets where he said, or not recent tweet, it was the author comment in this chapter of Shonen Jump, where he said, I've gotten my back fixed more or less, and I'm feeling better, so we're happy for him.
Heck yeah.
So hopefully many more chapters to come. Hopefully it feels like the pace is picking up and he's feeling better now, so it's like hopefully we'll actually see the end of the Succession War within our lifetimes, and possibly the Dark Continent and Gyro and all that stuff.
I know, hopefully.
There's a very real possibility that it could be happening. So that is very exciting.
I don't even care
what
Hunter x Hunter happens next. I'm just so hyped for it.
Here for the ride. Happy to read it. 400 chapters deep, and every chapter I read multiple times each time it comes out, and have a 2-hour discussion about it with my friend. So I think we give the series more respect than it even deserves, to be honest. But
honestly, very possible.
Maybe a little too much respect, but It's because we like it and we think it's very good.
Yeah. Listen, Listen, I give everything the benefit of the doubt, and I give Hunter x Hunter like 3 times that much benefit of the doubt.
We're huffing
but I don't regret it, because I really do think it deserves it.
We're huffing the copium, as some people would say. Like, oh, trust me, dude, it will work out. But unlike other situations where it's like you really do have to trust some people, it's like you can... It's nice to know... It's something I think about when people talk about Star Trek. I don't know if you've ever watched Trek. You've mentioned you had before, right?
Yeah, I've watched like chunks of Voyager and Deep Space Nine before.
Okay, yeah. So like TNG, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, those kind of older Trek shows, not the newer ones because they're kind of slop. But the big thing that differentiated the older ones between the newer ones, besides just it being like a utopia that was actually idealized in the older Star Treks, was also everyone in Starfleet Command, like all the main characters that we knew, besides like younger main characters like whatever the kid in TNG is named and that kind of thing, like characters who were growing up. The characters that were established and had been through Starfleet Academy and that kind of thing, the thing that you could trust in the series was their competency. And that's part of the big reason why I like TNG, is because a lot of the stories are written in like Voyager and Deep Space Nine. A lot of the stories are written from these characters are all competent. They might make mistakes. They might have a wrong judgment call, but they're competent. And you know they're competent, and then you know that they can do their job, and you know you can trust them to do their job. And that's kind of the thing where it's like I enjoy reading Hunter x Hunter because I know Togashi is competent, and I know I can trust him to do the right thing when even when I think that it might be like weird or that kind of thing. It's like that's not an extension that I can extend to very many other authors, even of series that I really like Berserk and Vinland Saga. Both of those have like their moments where I'm like, why did the author do this kind of thing? Like, why did they decide to do this? And it's like I can't fully trust them. Where Togashi has built up enough of that kind of buffer where it's like I can feel like I'm in good hands and I don't have to worry about the next Hunter x Hunter chapter not being good or something like that. Like like a 45 chapter arc about people fighting Sukuna. And half of the chapters are pretty forgettable. Because the same thing happens over and over again. But I'm not trying to throw shade on other authors. It's rather, I'm just trying to praise Togashi because of the consistency. Where it's like there are a few moments, there are a few in Hunter x Hunter where I'm like, what the hell? What the fuck was he trying to do with Palm there? Like, really? But like, majority of the time, 99.5% of the time, like I can trust that he will deliver, and I can trust in his competency, which is a big thing that I feel like I can't say for most other forms of media.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's like this is something that we can say about like Togashi now, because of both like his pedigree and the quality of his work and the mistakes that we know that he has already made before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Like I love Yu Yu, but Yu Yu's not great. It's not the best thing of all time. It's good. I mean, it's great, but it's not like it's not Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah,
that's what I'll say. Hunter x Hunter is finely crafted. It's an artisan dish. I'm going to Gordon Ramsay's 5-star Michelin star restaurant, and we're having his special mac and cheese. It's the best way I can put it.
Like, yes, this is still mac and cheese, but like you can tell it's of a different kind.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of care and effort put into it, and definitely benefits from the fact that Togashi is like one of the grandfathers of modern manga, saved Weekly Shonen Jump essentially. And so he's allowed to just take his time and do what he wants. So it's something. It's something, all right. And this is probably like, I feel like every time we talk about a new chapter, we're like, here's why Hunter x Hunter is great, and like we don't we don't need to go into it every time, but it just kind of naturally happens.
No,
like,
but it just you talk about it, and it's like even some of like the things that like Tadashi isn't necessarily like the best at are like historically like have been pretty good in these last few chapters. Like the paneling in particular on the last 2 chapters has been really strong in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no.
Like I especially love.
Mm-hmm.
Like the falling away of the backgrounds in this chapter, like how strategically those were used. Then in the last chapter, the just like the balance between all that text and the like really impressive detailed art, alongside with just like like whenever the chapters bleeded over into each other, like with Kurapika's dowsing. Dowsing chain, like those like moments, like small whenever they happened, were really effective. So it's like even like the things where Tadashi can tend to be like kind of middling on or just okay on, like his paneling has like also been really good in these past few chapters.
Yeah, that's something to note where it's like the backgrounds, not the paneling itself, but like the backgrounds. Like Togashi does a lot of the like all the foreground stuff and like the characters and a lot of like the important stuff in the background, like he'll do an outline of, but the backgrounds themselves, a lot of them are done from the assistants. So it's like the assistants are really putting in the work as well to like make sure the backgrounds look good and like the work looks good and competent, like, and even in these final panels that I've been staring at for a bit, where it's like all these characters are in this long, like generic hallway almost, but it's like we have that kind of setting where it's like you can see all of them and you can see there, even if that's like a generic setting, it's still drawn in a way that like we know where they all are and like a presence in the room and that kind of thing. So it's like that the assistants are doing a very good job on the backgrounds. I can say that much at least. Big ups.
Hard agree.
Big ups to everyone working on Hunter x Hunter right now. It's a big project, and I think it's doing good. But yeah, it's our weekly talk about how Hunter x Hunter is the greatest thing ever. Talk.
Yeah. Also, when just doing random like auto battling Pokemon, I was using a Slacking today. I didn't go so far as to like look for like a Ralts outbreak or anything, but I was using Slacking.
Yeah. Yeah. All I'm saying is us gushing so much about Hunter x Hunter. All I'm saying is this could have been you, Kingdom Hearts. All right, if you just locked in, no more just straightened himself out, focused a little bit. This could have been you. But instead you had to go and release 50 spin-offs that all were pertinent to the story.
Yeah. And here's the thing. If Kingdom Hearts 3 was good, it could have brought it back. It could have brought it back.
I don't know if I've been too forgiving, but like recently I've been looking at some Kingdom Hearts 3 stuff and I'm like, it's obviously still like kind of bad, but like I can understand what they're going for a bit in Kingdom Hearts 3, and while I can't say I love every bit of it, I can at least like respect it a little bit. I'm like, I understand it at least.
Oh yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3 is I know you're not a Tales of person, but it feels a lot like Tales of Arise to me. which is the most recent one, where it's like there's like a lot of good things in there, a lot of details, but a lot of it ends up falling apart because of two big problems. Where it like has such a strict formula for how every individual like arc of it, like every individual piece of it plays out, that it really drags the experience. And also, a lot of the coolest and most interesting parts are like uninteractive off to the side, as opposed to being organically woven in.
Yep. I mean, it's Kingdom Hearts at its best is focused, in my opinion, and it hasn't been focused since, I want to say 358 over 2 days, maybe a little bit Birth by Sleep, but it just hasn't been focused since then, like the whole series as a whole. So,
yeah,
they back then they had, Kingdom Hearts 1, they knew exactly what they wanted to do. Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, they knew exactly what they wanted to do with that. Kingdom Hearts 2, they knew exactly the story and the gameplay they wanted to do with that. 358 over 2, they knew exactly the story that they wanted to tell with that, Birth by Sleep, they knew exactly what they wanted to tell. The execution was a little rough, but the gameplay itself was... but they at least knew, they had a focus for that, and it feels like since at least Birth by Sleep, there hasn't been that kind of focus in the series.
Yeah. And then in Recoded, it
was a mess. It was a mess. Dream Drop Distance was a fucking mess. Holy. Kingdom Hearts 3 was a mess.
Yeah.
It's like something went wrong there. And the thing that went wrong was called Final Fantasy 15. So.
Nah, I still haven't played it. Probably won't.
The ripple effects of Final Fantasy 15 have been felt throughout the Kingdom Hearts series and will be felt forever. Considering we're just now getting into the Final Fantasy 15 arc, essentially, in Kingdom Hearts. So, which, like I mentioned before, it makes me actually excited for... The first time I've been excited for Kingdom Hearts since forever.
Yeah. Because
it's actually something Nomura wants to tell again. But we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens. And unfortunately, the gameplay will never be the same. There will never be another Kingdom Hearts 2.
Nope. But at least we can go back and play Kingdom Hearts 2.
And that's one of the things, like... when I've talked about that online before, where it's like Kingdom Hearts 2 is the best gameplay-wise, people are like, oh, so you hate 3 and Keyblade swapping, and it's like, no. I think Keyblade swapping is like a great improvement on the drive system, and I think it's really well done. The only issue I have with Keyblade like forms is they don't feel as impactful as drives, but obviously that's because there's so much more of them and that kind of thing. And but it's like Kingdom Hearts 3 has a lot of improvements that I think do work really well. It's just the game as a whole wasn't focused and had like 50 different things, and like a lot of them were ass. So it's like there are some things that are really good, and when you focus on them, are executed really well. But it's like it's just so much bloat and so much crap that bogs it down. So that's Kingdom Hearts for you, though. We don't need to talk about it. I just brought it up as an example.
Yeah.
There are many other series that can fit into that niche, for me at least. So it doesn't just have to be Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts is just the one I'm more passionate about than most of the other ones.
Yeah. Speaking of really good, like PS2, GameCube generation games, me and my wife have been playing through Tales of Symphonia. Tales of Symphonia is the one that a lot of people will end up kind of putting it on like a really big pedestal, because I think for a lot of people it was over here at least it was like their first one.
Yeah.
And the Switch port was originally very, very bad. But it was on sale in the eShop, and we looked up and saw that there had actually been like a decent amount of fixes of the many glitches when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
So now the PS3 or the Switchboard is actually a pretty decent option for playing it, so we've been playing through that.
Yeah, the only thing I know about it
And
besides the main character is that one scene where he's like, I brewed you some coffee.
I lied.
I lied. It's cold or whatever. It's
Anyway, the one thing I can say about the replay is that I think it really does hold up. It's really good.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like usually when there's something on a pedestal like that, it's because it's pretty good, you know.
Yeah. I think like there are definitely still some people that are maybe a bit too willing to overlook its flaws. But it's like outside of some problematic elements that haven't really aged well, like one of the characters as a comedic beat spanks her younger brother a lot. Outside of like a few small things like that, it really does hold up, and I honestly recommend it. I think if you ever like find the time to just like play through maybe the Switch version because it'll be easier of Tales of Symphonia, that's something that we could have a good long talk about.
Maybe one of those. I mean, I kind of swore off the Tales series after Berserk. That's what I'll say. So I don't think. I think going back to the older ones is probably the better chance I have of playing the series again, like Symphonia probably.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I think Symphonia compared to Berseria, because Berseria like the combat like it feels good on the lower levels, but it doesn't. It never actually like challenges you that much. But on the higher levels, there's so much BS that the combat can never really feel as good as it should. Symphonia doesn't really have that. Part of it is just because of like the era game it is. It just feels so much better.
Yeah.
Even the 30 FPS version on the Switch is like, it still feels so much more impactful.
Okay.
And there is actually some. You actually need to manage your resources some in Symphonia. And the story and characters is also very good. The biggest thing that's hard to go back to, for me anyway, is that the skits aren't voiced in Symphonia.
Go.
Except in the Japanese version. And the Japanese version, I don't know if it was for this version or for when they did the PS3 release, but for the Japanese version, they did go back and add voices to the skits.
Okay.
Just not for the English version. So what my wife has been doing is every time a skit comes up, she'll go to the menu, change the settings to Japanese so we can have voices, and then go back to English for the cutscenes.
That's funny. You don't realize how much of a difference voices make until you like really like get games that like rely on them and kind of like execute on them really well.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like as someone who like grew up with games that had like no or little voice acting in them, and like even as games added more, I still tended to play a lot of games that didn't have them, like Pokemon. So it's like for me, like the lack of voice acting is like, I'm not going to say it's a good thing, but it's usually something that I can just deal with. It's really interesting to see like other people have conversations about like the writing in Pokemon games. Obviously it's not always the best, but it's like some of them like can't even like, some people can't even see like some of the most basic, obvious, and well executed theming in them, and I'm like, what is wrong? Like, did you even read the words on screen? And I'm pretty sure the answer is no, because if someone isn't saying it out loud, they won't read them.
Yeah, that's a big thing with a lot of people, is just like skipping text boxes. There's in RuneScape, I play a lot of RuneScape. This thing called space barring. RuneScape is unique in that it's one of the only MMOs that the quests aren't like gather 10 bear ass furs and bring them back to me. Every quest is purposely designed and it like has certain things that you do, and like no quest is the same as the other ones, basically. It's more similar to like a I want to say single player RPG, but even a lot of single player RPGs do like collect 10 like mosquito beaks or whatever. Like a lot of single player,
Yeah.
like there's none of that in RuneScape. And each one is like specifically crafted and tells a story, and like sometimes they're really funny, sometimes they're serious and that kind of thing. There's this thing called spacebarring in RuneScape where you can hold down the spacebar button to just skip past dialogue boxes without reading them, and it's a majority of the player base does that, and it's a real shame because it's like they put so much work into this, and it's like a lot of it's like really well done, but it's like it's not voice acted, you know. There's just like a text box that you have to read, and so people just don't fucking care. They just hold the spacebar button and continue
It
doing their
is
shit.
just like it is bonkers to me how it's like, and it's like, you know, obviously, like, you know, something like Pokemon Sun and Moon is not like a high art, like, you know, work of fiction. But it's like, it's very good, and everything that it sets out to do, it does very efficiently and effectively, and it has some really good, like, character moments and detail work in there. But like,
and then they released Ultra Sun and Moon and said, "Fuck."
and just literally ruin the best written Pokemon villain in the series. Just
said, "Oops."
absolutely ruin it. God, so upset. Why? If you're gonna treat her as like a misunderstood hero for the rest of the game, why do you still include the scene where she calls her daughter ugly and then never do anything with it? Like, what? Like, it's fine if you want to have her not be actually a bad guy. That's fine. Why do you still keep that scene, huh? Why?
Dude, I just remember Sword and Shield, the fucking the the one cutscene where it just slides. It's Leon and Chairman Rose just talking. It's just fucking PowerPoint slides.
Yeah. Imagine if there were like, you know, we had like good voice actors like reading out those lines. The like the entire vibe of the scene would be conveyed so much better.
Yeah, and also like animators.
Yeah, that too.
I'm looking forward to Gen 10 is all I can say. I mean, I haven't read any of the leak stuff, but you know, Pokemon in the past. Sure, their first gens on the consoles have usually been good, but usually it's the gens that they release right at the end of the console's life that's like really good. You know?
Oh yeah.
So it's like maybe they finally had enough time on the Switch to
Maybe we'll get the black and white to our Diamond and Pearl. Who knows?
We'll see. Listen, all I'm saying is each gen, you know, I hope for one quality of life improvement. And all I'm hoping for Gen 10 is that they actually make a noise when a shiny appears in the overworld. We got the shiny actually appearing in the overworld in the last gen. That's a great improvement. Now we just need the noise.
Yeah.
You already did it in Legends Arceus. We know it can't be that bad.
Also, maybe some draw distance. I definitely wouldn't mind some draw distance.
Well, it's one of the things where like they definitely need to have time on the system to optimize that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Especially if it's going to be another like open world one, like Gen 9 was.
Yeah. Which I'm honestly kind of hoping for not as much.
You hoping for a Gen 8 kind of?
Yeah, well, I'm more like I think like my ideal experience is something like something that would be a bit more like a cross between Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet, where like you do have like a large map, but it's made up of like distinct explorable zones that each have a lot going on.
I've said it before. I don't know if I've said it to you before, but I know I'll never enjoy open world games as much as I'll enjoy a very tailored experience. And it was never made more prevalent to me than when I played Elden Ring for the first time. And I was like, if FromSoft can't even make an experience that I enjoy strictly from an open world standpoint, like I don't think anyone can. Like the best parts of Elden Ring to me were the specifically designed dungeons that were like checkpoints in between your journey. Like there was a big open world, and then you went to this dungeon and spent a couple hours there, and those are the fun parts for me. It's like
Oh yeah.
the parts that are specifically designed with like player intent in mind, like how we're going to lead the player through this, is infinitely more fun to me as a player than here's a massive open world, go do whatever the fuck you want.
Oh yeah. Because like one of the really cool things in like in Tales of Symphonia, which I was talking about before, is that it's got like 2 like pretty open world maps, but they like open up piece by piece, and you do not need to treat those world maps as extremely open if you don't want to. Because basically, you have up until like through like after the first dungeon, because it's got like 2 world maps for like 2 different like planets basically. Once you get through the first dungeon, you can basically go anywhere you want in the in that first map, except for like a few end game locations. But like you still have a really obvious path forward. But if you want, you can go and do everything from that first quarter of the game in reverse. And it doesn't tell you can do this. It's just like an option that you can do. But like the fact that you can go explore somewhere where like unless you're really good at the game, you will get your butt handed to you, is just like so good.
Yeah. Or like
I really like.
Yeah, go on.
It's like I want an experience that is by default linear, but has room to be opened up and explored.
Yeah, I think that another big one for that is, I don't know if you've ever played the Fallout series, but Fallout New Vegas has a very distinct like line from the start of the game. You start on the west side of the map, and where you need to go is to the northeast side of the map. But it's not like if you take the direct line through there, you go through like this big dangerous place with a bunch of storms and a bunch of like death claws, which are like the most powerful enemy in the game. And it's very dangerous. Yeah. But if you go down south and you follow the road down south, then it like loops around the whole map, and like you follow it up to the northeast section, and it's like a tailored experience, but it's still an open world, but you still have like this main through line. You have the big road that you're going down, and you're following it throughout the whole journey. It's a really nice experience for like a new player as you go around the map, and it's like tailored specifically to have you go through this journey this specific way, but you can still like if you played the game a couple times, you can go up Deathclaw Alley, like that kind of thing. So it's like it's very, very well done, and I think those are the only kind of open worlds where I like them. It's like where it's specifically they had an idea for where they wanted you to go through the world, and you can break it if you're knowledgeable enough, but if you're not, then you experience the game the way they more or less intended at the start.
Yeah.
Because designer intent, believe it or not, designer intent is really important when you're designing a game and having your players go through it. It's not important enough that you have to make it so that players can only play the game you want. Cough, cough, Game Freak with every Pokemon game.
Yeah.
But it is important enough where it's like players, you have to give them that balance of agency while also giving them that balance of like, here's what we want you to be able to do. Where it's like you can just kind of go through this world in this way. You still have your agency. You can do whatever you want realistically, but, or theoretically, but realistically, here's how we designed it, and here's how you're going to most likely experience it and most enjoy experiencing it. That makes for a better experience for the player.
And it's one of those things where it's like you can like literally feel in like some of the in Gen 7 and 8 in particular, you can feel the way that like they could have opened this up just like a little bit, and it would have like done so much for the experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Like if when you got to Hammerlock, you could go left or right.
Definitely like Gen 7.
Yep.
Like I've only played the original a couple times, and I've never played Ultra. But like one of those things is like I have a couple of hunts that I want to do in Ultra one day, But it's like I dread going through that game again because it's so bad how it like claws you back and like
Oh yeah,
makes you.
I know. It's like as much as like Sun and Moon is like my favorite Pokemon game, probably depending on the day I wake up. Like you can feel like the second island in particular is like begging to just be opened up.
It feels so like detained from what it could be. So that's like it's like making a tailored experience for the player is important, like we've mentioned, but also give them those options so they can do stuff, so they don't feel like they're claustrophobic almost.
Yeah,
It's a
let them
very fine balance.
Yeah, not saying it's easy.
No, definitely not. I
but
mean,
I
it
am
definitely.
saying I wish that
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying I wish they'd done it better or done it
And
at all.
yeah, definitely, it's like something where it's like the reason why the complaint started about open worlds and like how open world is a lot worse is because it feels a lot easier to handle. Like a bad linear game experience, you're still going through the game at the way the designer intended, even if it's like a bad linear game experience and you're just walking down hallways and it's fucking boring as hell. A bad open world experience, you could be doing something the designer didn't even like intend for you to kind of do and being bored by it and just like having it be a slog extended like 5 times the length of the original designer's intent. Where it's like a bad linear experience or a linear experience, I should say, is easier in execution, which is why it's less compelling to complain about like a linear experience than it is about an open world experience. Because so many open world games feel like such a slog with how much time you have to spend in them. Where it's like a bad linear experience, it's at least over.
Yeah.
So that's just how it is, though.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot to mention the what you might call the platonic ideal of my preferred quote unquote open world experience is Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2.
I mean, Dark Souls 1, I definitely I think it falls apart once it finally gets to that.
Oh yeah,
it
falls apart at the end because it doesn't
yeah,
it falls apart at the end because it doesn't really hold true to that open world ideal because it like locks off progression for the later areas until you finish the first half of the game.
Yeah. But I think the original thesis, like that going through Undeadburg and like that kind of thing and like choosing where to go is so well executed in Dark Souls.
Yeah.
All the way up to Anor Londo. It's a very intently designed world that Miyazaki was like, I want to make sure that this world is the way I want it to be. I want things to connect the way I want them to connect. And it's one of those things where it's like, I don't think any other game has attempted to do it just like Dark Souls 1, the first half of Dark Souls 1 has, and has been able to execute it.
Yeah. I think that Dark Souls 2, in my opinion, comes pretty close in
it has some
gameplay,
of it, yeah.
But without that same physical cohesion.
Yeah.
Sure. But in terms of like, it was like, well, you don't have that same like physical coherence and like centralized lore to unpick as you do in Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2 in terms of like the choices and what order to do things, the ability to like explore and open things up piece by piece. It does hit the same notes just as, or almost as good as like the first half of Dark Souls 1 to me.
Yeah, I agree.
And it also does not fall apart as much towards the end, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it definitely doesn't fall apart as much, but it also doesn't reach as much of a high as the first half of Dark Souls 1 was. Like it's going for it, but it's also not going for it as well as Dark Souls 1 did.
Yeah. It's not reaching as hard and it doesn't fall as hard.
Yeah. So it's still but it's still like one of the only ones that has attempted it, even. So
Yeah.
like
Man,
even
I hated going through Dark Souls 3 so much.
yeah, Dark Souls 3 is fucking. I love the early parts of Dark Souls 1 and 2. Dark Souls 3, the early part of it, I'm just like, man. Every time I think about it, I'm just like, I really don't like the early part of Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, it's like what? You did 2 branching paths?
Not great. Technically, you can kill the dancer
Yeah.
earlier and go up there. Yes, the best.
Which is like technically cool.
And it's like all the what is it? All the Souls likes that have come out since then. I kind of hate the Souls like genre because they took the aspect of Souls games that aren't as fun, which is like the slog of like the getting through and like leveling up your character and like reacquiring your souls and stuff like that and going from checkpoint to checkpoint, which can be fun. But the reason why going from checkpoint to checkpoint is so fun in the original Dark Souls is because it was like this ever expanding world that you opened up piece by
Yeah,
piece, like
you're
uncovering
literally
a map.
picking apart this gigantic knot as you do it.
Yeah, and nothing of the Souls genre copied that aspect of it, where it's like because it's fucking impossible. Like it's super hard.
Yeah,
I like there's
so
no
hard.
there's no way that's easy. Like obviously, what I'm saying is yeah, like clearly, but it's like even like Souls games that around the time I considered good, like the original Neo and like or even like Demon Souls, like you didn't explore a world there, you went into a thing and said,
Yeah, you
I'm
had
selecting
like
this
you
place to
had a
go.
level select.
Yeah. Like Bloodborne and that kind of like it's like what's so interesting about Dark Souls 1 and even like you can trace it back to like the old Kingsfields where it's like it's this cohesive world that you're piecing together one by one and you're like you said untying that knot and figuring out the map
Yeah,
and that kind of
and
thing.
Bloodborne has like Yarnum, Central Yarnum into it's like different areas of Yarnum proper,
Mm-hmm.
and Cathedral Ward have that element, but like
Yeah,
everything else is just kind of like a branching path off of that.
it's like separated but connected at the same time. But
Yeah, it's like Cathedral Ward and Yarnum, you can unpick the knot, but
yeah,
everything outside of that is its own area, which like Bloodborne is still really good.
mm-hmm.
But it like, it doesn't have that core soul of what makes Dark Souls 1 so good to me.
No, and that's one of those things where it's like I see people being like Dark Souls 1 isn't as good because like it's slower and it's like a different playstyle and like that to me was never like I'm never like wow I'm so glad this boss has like 15 feints now that I have to think about when I'm fighting them or like has an attack that I have to dodge 7 times in a row near frame perfect cough cough millennia uh, in order to make it an enjoyable experience. It's like no they could still do that. Dark Souls 1 had like amazing bosses. One of the still the hardest bosses in the series, Ornstein and Smo, which you can say is bad for numerous reasons, but I still think is a really good fight. It's like, or they have things like Artorias, where it's just like a extremely well executed fight that you have to take slow and like. But to me, that's not that is part of the point, but that's not the whole point. The point that you're missing is the fact that it's one of the core design elements of Dark Souls 1 isn't present in any Souls like in the modern day. And that's kind of sad.
Yeah. It's like a big part of the reason that those bosses feel so good and impactful is that like they are a part of that world.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you fight the boss that is most emblematic of Blighttown right before you get to Blighttown. You fight the boss that is most emblematic of the Demon Ruins right before you get to the Demon Ruins.
Where you fight the Capra Demon,
There,
and then hours later see that the Capra Demon is he's just a dude. He's one of the many dudes.
oh, he's just He's just a guy who wandered up here.
Yeah, he just came up here. He's the guy. It's like it's cool. It's fun. Man, we went on a tangential journey today.
Yeah. Moral of the story, I wish that Pokemon games were written with a story as good as Hunter x Hunter's, with a world design that was as good as Dark Souls, the first half of Dark Souls 1.
Yeah. So basically, like, if your game isn't perfect, I'm gonna call it shit. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna dox all your employees.
I'm getting ready for the Poke MMO with ICLA co-development.
God, if I see a Pokemon MMO didn't release, I'm gonna walk
I'm
into the
pretty sure
river
it
and
was
become a
debunked
trout.
as an MMO.
Yeah.
It's supposed to have some multiplayer elements, but I'm pretty sure it's not supposed to be an MMO from what people are saying online.
Okay.
So, but it is co-developed by ICLA, so you know.
I think they should let me direct a Pokemon game.
Yeah.
Hire me on as director. I'll do a great job.
Worst reviewed Pokemon game of all time has come out. 20 years later, there'll be a cult following for this Pokemon game, but you know, on release, it sold the worst of any
on
Pokemon
release,
game.
90% of players didn't get past the first 10 minutes. 100% of the conversation around the game was how hard it was and how big the tits were on that bunny Pokemon you caught on Route 3.
But don't worry, no Typhlosions were found in this game. Kept them away.
Man, just take out the dates in Ula, or take out the dates in Ula Ula Island, and the game would be so much better.
I'm sure somebody's done like a Sun and Moon hack at this point where they like open it up a bit. Has to be.
Maybe.
It's been like a decade now since Sun and Moon, right?
I don't know. Most people are so focused on like Nuzlocke and randomizers that I honestly can't see anyone doing like a good ROM hack like that. But maybe. I'm not really tied into the ROM hacking scene, especially for the DS stuff.
No, Sun and Moon wasn't 2016. What?
Sun and Moon was 2015.
It says 18th November 2016 worldwide release. Because it was the 20th anniversary. Huh?
Was it 2016?
There's no way.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right, because it came out in my first semester at college, and I didn't start until a year after I graduated.
I thought I remembered playing it in high school. Maybe I'm fucking delusional. Maybe I'm thinking like.
You're probably thinking of Meta Ruby and Alpha Sapphire.
Yeah. When did they come out? 2014? Yeah, it's probably it then.
Yeah.
It's probably it. Because I remember Sun and Moon, where I fucking bred all those Totodiles. I think that might have been it. I was riding the Tauros.
Riding the Tauros.
Yeah, I think that was it. That makes sense. But yeah.
Why can't every video game that gets released be perfect?
What is Fall in 2023 kind of does have the internet so well, but the rest of the game is dog shit. Yeah, I had heard some stuff about that when the game was releasing. One of my friends played it and said it wasn't actually that bad. And I remember that friend was also a Surge 2 apologist. But I think Surge 2 was actually good compared to Surge 1, so I just remember Surge 1 being fucking liquid detritus. So I never tried Search 2 out, but I heard Search 2 was actually better. Listen, if you got to do something different, at least do something like Neo, where it's like fun to play.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do something different from
I'll
the
get
Souls
around to
formula.
Neo one day. I'll get around to playing Elden Ring at some point.
I mean, Elden Ring's great.
Instead of just.
I think your first experience with Elden Ring will always be something special for everyone. I think the second experience is when you go, oh wait.
Oh wait. Yep.
Wait a second. I don't want to play through this fucking open world again.
Yeah. I had a yeah, probably after I'm done with this second Dark Souls 2 playthrough.
It's like if Nintendo released a Zelda game that was like the exact same world as the first one.
Yeah.
And they were just like, yep, it's a new game. And you just played through it and you're like, I don't want to play through this fucking open world again.
Man, I have got to finish Echoes of Wisdom. It's so good.
Elden Ring got boring right before the giant. Wasn't the giant... You're talking about Fire Giant? That's the end of the game, brother. It's like right before you head into Farum Azula, and then you go up the thing.
Was it boring because he had it right for the end game and then started losing?
But yeah, I think Elden Ring, everyone's first time through is going to be a good experience, and you'll enjoy it. I don't think the DLC's out now, and I hear that that's ball-bustingly hard. So I don't even know. Usually the DLC is the best part of Souls games. So.
Well, the DLC areas.
Yeah, like Dark Souls 1 DLC areas were great. Ones were great, twos were great. Quite right there, but the open world before it was just kind of boring. Okay, that's fair. The area before the giant I can see as being kind of snoozer. Especially the ones after it being like almost exactly the same with the snow shit. But I'm trying to think. Dark Souls 1 has like Manus and Artorias, and those areas are all great. Dark Souls 2 has like Fume Knight, and all those areas are great. And it also has the one Sarlon. Old Ivory King's also kind of interesting.
That's true. Yeah, the old Ivory King fight is good with a really interesting lead up that's just happens to be a little annoying.
Yeah. And then Dark Souls 3 has Gale, which is a poggers.
Oh yeah.
I don't like the Ring City itself that much.
No, although the Frozen, the Painted World and Dark Souls 3 is. Yeah, that's a really cool area to explore.
The boss of Painted World fucking sucks balls, but Sister Frida's fucking atrocious.
Listen, if it was literally just the third form and that was it, it'd be fine.
I thought people always hated the Souls DLC. No, dude, people love the Souls DLC. Those are always people's favorite parts. Dark Souls 1 is like, that's like the part that people always talk about as like the best part of the game. Even though I don't necessarily, I think Dark Souls 1, it's like fantastic, but I don't think it's the best part. I think the first half of Dark Souls 1's better. But I still think it's really good. And Dark Souls 2, obviously the DLC's more or less saved part of the game. So Dark Souls 2 a little rough before the DLCs.
My biggest problem with the Dark Souls 2 DLC is that one of the most fun things about Dark Souls 2 is that for the most part, like, barely any of the bosses completely lock you out of any mechanics. Like, there's literally only one or two bosses that are immune to bleed and poison in the game.
Yeah.
Until you get to the DLC, where literally every single boss is immune to both bleed and poison, except for, like, the cat, I think.
That's annoying.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's like a classic JRPG issue.
Yeah.
But Bloodborne, everybody loves Old Hunters. Old Hunters is great. Maria and Koss
Man,
and Ludwig.
I really need to play the Bloodborne DLC at some point. I really do. It's a travesty that I haven't yet.
Koss, I still think about Koss because people talk about like how we've gotten like power scaling essentially in like Melania and stuff in Elden Ring. And I think Koss is like that perfect, really fucking difficult, but also like not impossible wall that is really fun. Like I think he's a little bit harder than Gale, but not like impossible.
Yeah,
Koss is great. Yeah, no, I think Bloodborne DLC is like fan-fucking-tastic. And then Dark Souls 3 DLC is hit or miss.
yeah,
it's hit or miss.
It's got some good bosses, got some bad bosses,
good bosses, some good
areas.
Yeah. So, and then Sekiro didn't have any DLCs, thank fucking god.
Oh, you know what? I didn't like most of the Rain City, but the bottom section of the Rain City was pretty good.
It's fair. I don't know, I think Gale's great. I think Midir's mid or worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did not even bother.
And then I never played Elden Ring's DLC yet. I might one day, but it would require me to replay the game, I feel like.
Someday.
Well, one day when I feel like replaying the game, I'll play the DLC there, and I'll fight Mesmer and all that shit. And have fun with that.
Does Elden Ring have a respecking?
Yes. There are like certain items that you... there's a limited number of them, but you take them to... After you reach a certain point in the game, there's one of the bosses that after you beat them, you can respec at them, basically.
Okay, cool.
So... And you also have to have, like, I think there's only like a dozen or so of the items in the game to respec. So you can't respec infinitely, but it gives you enough that you can play around a little bit.
Basically the same as like the Dark Souls 2 one.
Yeah.
Okay.
You didn't beat the last DLC boss before they got nerfed. I know what it was. And that is a kind of a shame because because in the base game, I was so happy to fight Radon pre-nerf. So the fact that I don't get to do the refight pre-nerf is kind of sad. I did hear about that, how they nerfed it. But I don't really care that. I don't care enough to like rush out to play the game to not fight pre-nerf bosses, basically. I'm not like, I gotta fight this. Therefore you didn't beat the game. Yeah, whatever, bro. Yeah, 90% of the people that fought the boss probably used fucking Mimic Tier or something, so fucking miss me with that shit. Which, by the way, Mimic Tier, totally allowed way to play the game. If you don't know, there's a thing in Elden Ring called the Mimic Tier, which is just brings a AI controlled version of you into the fight with you.
Oh, that's cool.
Funny. Yeah, it like increases the boss's health bar when you summon it too, so it's not like it's just like an easy win. But most of the time, from what I remember, if you got it off and you like could just like stagger stun some of the bosses and just fucking kill them, so. But it's one of those ways, like a big issue with Elden Ring is a lot of people talk about like they're the hardcore fans who are like, you can't use summons or like do this kind of thing or that kind of thing, or like you're cheating basically. And it's like, nope, that's like a modular difficulty. That's like how they that's how you make the game easier if you want to make it an easier experience. Like, yeah, especially because people complain that Souls games don't have difficulty like options at the beginning. It's like the difficulty options is the choice that you make in the game if you want to like use summons or use this kind of thing. Like that's your difficulty option.
Man, I love Dark Souls 1 and 2.
I love the whole series. I can't say that I hate any of them, but I hate aspects of some of them.
Yeah. Like, considering how much fun I had fighting a lot of the bosses in 3, it's really hard to say that I hate 3, but boy do I hate 3.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of fun experiences. Like, I remember very vividly, I remember like Vort and stuff like that. Like Vort's such a fun fight where it's like you're just like dodging the dashes and like fighting back, and, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like
Boy,
very
howdy, do
fun
I
fight
love the
system.
Dragon Slayer armor.
I don't remember enough about the Dragon Slayer armor to say either or.
It's just, I just
Yeah.
think it's such a really cool fight.
But then you have the fucking.
It's like one of the.
Go on.
I was going to say it's one of the few bosses against like a shielded enemy that I like still find engaging. And the projectiles from the I forget what they're called, the pilgrims in the background that kind of like start showing up partway through the fight. I think they're enough to be impactful to where like you do actually notice them, but they're not like so constant that it's like really annoying.
Mm-hmm. No, I think like even some of the like late game like Nameless King and Dark Souls 3, it's like that I really like the second phase of that boss. The first phase is just fucking annoying. But once you get to the second phase,
I love
it's
the
like,
second phase, like the idea of the first phase.
I also like the lore implications for the Nameless King. Because for so many years people were like, oh, it's what's his face? Fucking Solaire. Solaire's the final, he's the heir to the throne. And it's like, nope, actually Solaire's just a fucking nobody.
Solaire's the guy.
Yeah. So, a lot of fun stuff. A lot of fun stuff with the Souls series. We're talking masterpieces here today on the stream.
Yeah.
Hunter x Hunter, like Souls, and Kingdom Hearts and Pokemon.
I would personally, I know it's a game you haven't played, but I personally would put Tales of Symphonia up there with Kingdom Hearts 2.
Okay. It's the pinnacle of its series. It is the Final Fantasy VII or the Dragon Quest VIII.
Man, I really need to replay 8.
It's one of those things you mentioned earlier where were you saying like Tales of Symphonia, like people put so much respect on it that I think they should put a little less. That's me with Dragon Quest VIII. Like there's so many other Dragon Quest games that are fantastic. Like we need more 5 Glazers out there, bro. 5 is like goated.
Hey, listen, where they're gonna be. We're getting the HD remasters.
True. I'm so glad. I think 5 though is like the second one people usually consider after 8 as being the best. Although I think 11 is also fantastic as well.
11 is fantastic. The writing quality is so swingy though in 11.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the constant for a lot of the Dragon Quest games though. Like 9, I'm thinking of like 9 is like a great game, but like some of the writing in 9 is like, come on, man. So like 9 is like so many like short little stories that they wanted to tell that they're like, ooh, this is a really interesting idea. Let's tell this little short story, and it's like, oh, that's really nice, but then like in between, it's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you've got like the. Yeah, you've got like what? There was the one where there was that like dead princess or someone who's like rebuilt as a robot.
Yeah.
And it's just like so beautiful. And then you've got like the friggin' Colosseum Tower that is just nothing.
And then you've got like the stone town that the dude entirely remade the town out of stone. That kind of thing. It's like, oh, it's such a well told like little vignette. Let me get a little peer into.
I gotta finish 9 too.
Did you never get to the town of stone?
I don't remember.
It was one of the later ones.
Yeah, I must not have gotten to it then, because I actually it was that robot girl one that I stopped on.
Yeah, it's a good one as well. And then like the Dark Knight one where it's like that's one of the first ones. Where like the quote unquote evil knight and like running away with the princess, and it's like actually he's not evil, that kind of thing. A lot of well told little stories in 9.
Yeah. The worst thing about 11 is that my favorite character got the worst arc.
Which
Oh,
one?
I
Oh,
love
Eric.
yeah, I love you had to do it to him, Eric.
Uh,
And then his is just nothing. Like his sister's really cute, but it's just like
well, it's
it's
Eric
just
also.
nothing.
Eric also got the treatment of being like every single spin-off for Dragon Quest XI is like the Eric story.
That's true. That's true. Which I haven't played any of them yet, but I like want to. I just haven't gotten around to it.
I don't know. It's. I mean, some of those characters in 11. Whoo boy, they know how to write them.
Yeah. And then unwrite
And then
them.
there's characters who don't do anything for 90% of the game, and then they're like, oh, actually, I'm gonna do something really cool at the end. And you're like, what the fuck? Serena, cough, cough.
Yeah. But that was her whole point, is that like
Yeah.
after what happened to her sister, she grew up while you were having the rest of your adventure, and it's so freaking good. Yeah,
Let's undo.
yeah, actually no. I beat the game. I did not finish the game. I beat it. There was no post game. There was no
Yeah,
post
the
game.
third arc kind of muddies the thing a bit. I think it should have descended in the second arc, but the third arc is, we got to save everyone, which is fine. I just think the second arc is so much more of a well executed story. The way it's like everyone has finally come together, and you're like, oh, we got to find Victoria. Oh, we found her, and then it's just like, oh.
It's like, oh, and saving us all, she
it's
actually
very
killed herself.
Because the whole
And
time
it's
I'm
so
going
well
like,
written, and it's so sad.
the whole time I'm going like, well, Hendrik, like he's here now. Like, what the fuck are we gonna do? Like, oh, we got an extra party member, and then it's like, oh, dude, well, actually, you don't. Oops. That's one thing I like a lot about the Dragon Quest XI fandom. Nobody spoiled that twist. I don't think I've seen a single person ever spoil that twist online.
That's so good.
Like, I literally like people draw fan art of like the whole crew, and they don't include him in it specifically because they don't want to spoil it and stuff. And it's like, that's really nice. You have some mad respect for the fan base for kind of keeping that up.
Yeah, I hate 11, but I love 11.
Yeah, I think 11's very good. Very good. And I'm hoping 12 is also good. Speaking of series that is supposed to be taking a turn for the darker side, since Final Fantasy just did it with 16, and now Dragon Quest is going to be doing it with 12, apparently.
Oh, yeah. Was 16 any good? I still haven't played it. I don't have a PS5.
So supposedly, from what I saw initially, like the combat looked really nice, and like I was like, oh, it looks neat. But supposedly the combat's like not too deep; it's pretty shallow.
Mm.
And so like you playing through like a however 100-hour JRPG, like it kind of shows its weakness a bit. But it's still apparently decent. Apparently the biggest issue a lot of people have with it is the pacing is fucking abysmal. So like you in between like major story beats that are really hype, it's like then you have to go and like explore this area and do a bunch of shitty side quests and stuff. So that's just what I've heard apparently.
Yeah. I heard some complaints about the side quests, but
yeah,
haven't heard too much.
Apparently, if you miss some early side quests, it locks out like later side quests that are like important and are actually interesting. But they're like you have to do the boring ones early on to actually get those later ones. So
oh yeah.
So yeah, I saw people complaining about some of that. But Looking forward to 12. We'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
Probably play 16 sooner rather than later. Now that it's on PC. So.
Yeah, we're planning on getting a PS5 like sometime before Wilds come out. Wilds comes out. So I'll probably play it close to there.
Yeah, I think I don't know if I'll play Wilds. We'll see how I'm feeling when it comes out.
That's fair. Monster Hunter games, it's like they do take so much time.
Yeah.
And there's also the problem of like keeping pace with the other people you're playing with.
Yep.
Because it's like probably the best way to play Monster Hunter is like you get home, do a hunt or two every night, and then go to bed. But like if you're like wanting to play with other people, like that's not gonna cut it, type of thing.
It's one of those like I was looking at another friend of ours, Mason, recently, and he says he doesn't like playing Minecraft because every time we play Minecraft, we open up like a server and like a bunch of us play on it, and then like 3 people who don't have jobs just fucking play the game for 2 weeks straight and like just do a bunch of shit, and then the rest of us are like, what the fuck?
It's hard to balance all the people that have things to do.
Yeah.
There's also the fact that I have not been putting any time into competitive Pokemon recently. And it's sad. I don't even know if we're gonna get a Florida Regionals or Knoxville Regionals next year. They still haven't announced it. If I'd known that, I probably would have tried to go to the Kentucky Regional this week, since that's only like, since that's not too far from me. This format's fun though. I hate Sneasler. I think like the first game that Sneasler wound up on stream for, one of the casters I think was like, all right, this first Dire Claw is gonna paralyze and it's gonna did a full paralysis, and then it did.
Sneasler should go the way of the Onceler. To the cringe dimension, never to return.
Sneasler is like a Rockslide died 2013, revived a Sneasler in 2024. Alright. I should probably get off now, get ready for work. I don't want to go in. I'm going to be so tired. I'm dying, Scoop. Alright, any closing thoughts?
Let me find an image to link to you. Hold on. Somebody linked me the other day. Here's my closing thought.
And now for Mad Pat's closing thoughts.
The world of Pokemon will never be the same.
Now I know why everyone was saying to, if you want to avoid the link, stay away from our What? Do you say something?
Nope. Oh, that artillery do be looking at me, kind of.
Also, there have been a lot of memes that I just did not understand, like rate my team memes showing up on my Pokemon Twitter, and now I understand.
Yeah, let me guess. Artillery, Slack King, Typhlosion, Rapidash, Lapras, Ursaring.
Including it was really funny because there's one Twitter account. It calls itself like CEO of Sinnoh, and it's basically just like a bunch of they're either all the memes they repost on Twitter all the time are either really cringe or stolen. And so every time a Joker meme ends up on their Twitter, everyone starts tweeting it like, "All right, guys, pack it in, we're done." And I'm like, dang, this one went so fast, I don't even know what it was about.
I just like somebody made a chart of like each month where like who got canceled for being a sexual predator each month. In October, it just says Typhlosion.
Rip. All right, I'm out of here. Time to go get dressed. I love you. Bye, a stream.
Bye. Yeah, they suck. Thank you, Noah. And thank you for being here. Noah and everyone else who's on time for our epic
www.reddit.com/r. Oh, wait, I'm still on the call. Oh, no,
no. r/.
Anyway, I'm out of here. Is that that's the Sinnoh myth version of our Stunfisk.
Artillery's going way up in stocks.
Artillery stocks to the.
Alright. You say stock Tua? Alright.
Oh, is your stream off? Yeah, I need to tell you about the worst shirt.